This is This Between Us.
The number one podcast in the world.
This is
the JBU.Show featuring Austin
from the Miller Talk Podcast.
Allen,
the American Sincerest.
And now your host,
Cam Allen.
All right, how's it going, everybody? My name is Chris, and this is the JBU.Show. As you can see, I am alone tonight. That probably should have been pretty obvious by the fact it is 12:42 in the morning. So if you are one of the few people that are still up with me, how you doing? I don't know what I'm doing up at this hour, but I just finished looking into a specific story that originally I was going to run for tomorrow's show, but it became such a big story the more that I dug into it. Decided, let's just go ahead and make the episode tonight, give people something to watch in the morning before the main show tomorrow night. You can catch this show Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with my co-hosts, the American Sincerest at FirstAllan2 on X, and Austin from the Miller Talk podcast as well. They will be here, I mean, I guess technically later tonight at this point, around 5 p.m. West Coast time. We got a few things to talk about here, just real briefly, and then we're going to get into the main story, which is a piece that was just put out from The Hill by I want to make sure I get the name right here. Give me just a second. Yeah, Anthony Enriquez. And it is an opinion piece, but it is a uniquely heavily cited opinion piece, which I found interesting, obviously, as I read through it. And it is a perfect example of how you can manipulate a story based on a lot of cited information because nobody's going to check it. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to read the story, and we're going to check the 50 hyperlinks that are in the article and see how much this really pans out, and find out once and for all whether or not the Trump administration is the Gestapo. We will see as we go through it. Could be. You never know. First, though, let me go to this video here.
Only
a right-wing YouTuber, live streamer, guy like me, but goes out places and does things that to get views that would, you know what? I'm gonna refrain my comments. This guy named Jake Lang went out and made a video today in Minnesota. Apparently, in front of the Minnesota State Building, some leftist protesters put up a giant ice sculpture that says prosecute ICE, meaning, immigrations and customs enforcement, obviously. Now, this video looks slightly fake. Like, the more I look at the prosecute ICE thing here, the more AI it looks. Although, I don't know if there's AI. Can you make a video of you doing something and have AI fill it in on the spot like that? I don't know. I don't tend to play around with these things because I just, don't care all that much. But I do know not to trust almost anything that you see online these days. Now, several people have reported this on X, so take that for what it's worth, both left and right. He himself has claimed that he has been arrested and charged now with a felony. Hearing a weird feedback. Hopefully you guys don't hear anything. But he claims that he has now been charged with a felony for kicking over this ice sculpture and making it say pro-ICE rather than prosecute ICE. I still lean on the side that this probably is not real, but let's look for ourselves. I mean, it's pretty good if it's a fake video. I can't deny that.
Pro-ICE, baby! America first, America only! We'll see you here, February 7th, Saturday, 12 noon, outside the Minnesota State Capitol.
Now look, I have no idea who this guy is. Before this video, never heard of him. Could care less one way or another That's, make your own opinions, right? The question is about the act he's doing and whether or not he should have been arrested. And I made a very simple comment on this that I wish more conservatives were at, right? Which is, I don't have a problem with him doing it, but I also don't have a problem with him being arrested for doing it. Assuming this is real, I'm not in favor of, now to be fair, originally I thought they said F-ICE, and so that kind of altered my opinion a little bit because that would be obviously inappropriate language in a public place. But this is a non-sanctioned ice sculpture. It was going to melt, right? So let's just keep that in mind. But this was a non-sanctioned art installation in front of the state capitol on public land, which is owned by everybody. And he damaged it, obviously. It's not okay to damage somebody else's property. At the same time, you can't just put up art sculptures in a public place on public land that belongs to all of us without permission, which has been determined to be a permit, basically. That's how we've decided to give people permission to do things like this. I'm guessing they don't have a permit. Maybe they do. Either way, you're not going to find me out there kicking over letters, cut out of ice blocks. It's just not something I'm going to do. It's not something that most people on the right are generally inclined to do. Just destruction like that is not something that is as much in the nature of the average conservative. I'm not saying it never happens. Obviously, it just did. But you don't have that same kind of anarchist contingency that you have on the left. So, I think that there's a lot of hysteria around this topic right now. I think that it's an anti-American slogan in a sense, because it is targeted at American law enforcement doing a job that was requested by the American people. And a lot of people, they want to talk about, oh, you're constitutionalists are no longer for or against tyranny and all this stuff. And it's like, well, in order for it to be tyranny, one, it has to violate the law and or constitution. And two, has to be against the will of the people. This is neither of those things. ICE is enforcing the same laws that we have had on the books for 100+ years, and realistically speaking, 250 years. On top of that, the Trump administration won the last election fair and square, in the largest part due to immigration. This was as close as you get to mandated by the people. So I understand that there are some people that never wanted this in the first place that are unhappy, but generally speaking, the majority of Americans voted for this. It is entirely constitutional, and it is following the law. So when you put out a big-ass sign that says prosecute ICE, it's hard for me not to see that as anti-American. And that is why I don't have a problem with him kicking over a few letters to make it say pro-ICE. But at the same time, you don't just get to damage somebody else's property. And, we're flirting a weird line because it's probably an unsanctioned art piece. Again, assuming any of this is real in the first place. But it's probably an unsanctioned art piece, right, in a public place on public land. And so how exactly you finagle all that, I'm not really sure legally. But I have no problem with, I do think that there is a place in our society for doing righteous things, even when they might not be the right thing to do. We'll just put it that way. But that doesn't mean that you absolve yourself of the consequences for them. Damaging someone else's property, again, putting aside the weird flirting in the line here, comes with a punishment of usually fines or whatever, right? So it's hard for me to be upset that you got there's no room for being a hypocrite here. I've said it many times. In the world that we live in today, everybody lies about everything. We can't trust the media. We can't trust the government. We can't trust anybody. Who can we trust? Credibility is the most valuable thing that you can have. And so, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and cheer this on as if I'm for it, when if that was a leftist, I would be very upset about it. And I don't know that I would be all that upset given the exact circumstances, even if it was a leftist. But obviously, you know, I've condemned leftist rioting for the last several months now. I'm not going to cheer this on. I'm not directly opposed to it because of the exact circumstances involved in this, but I'm not opposed to the consequences either. All right, moving on. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick before we get into the main story is the SAVE Act. Now, as we all know, the SAVE Act is a piece of legislation that is working its way through Congress, sorta. It's kind of stalled out for unknown reasons. Republicans overwhelmingly, as we can see from Pew Research here, 95% are in favor of voter ID to vote. Or a photo ID to vote, rather. Overwhelmingly, Democrats are in favor too, and have been for a long time. These are not new numbers. Now, 95% from Republicans is exceptionally high. I think 80% was the number I had planned on using until I came across this graphic from the previous. It was 80% and like 60-something Democrat. Either way, for a long time now, both sides have been in favor of voter ID. There is absolutely no reason not to do it, except that for whatever reason, Democrats in office, not voters, but the politicians, flat out refuse. And we all kind of know what those reasons are, but it's the will of the people, so get it done. And Mike Johnson coming up with all these excuses about how long it's going to take. Name one thing more important before the next election. In 7 months. About to look at my watch as if I'm wearing one. I can't think of a single thing other than, I guess, finishing the CR because they put off DHS in order to get the rest of it passed, because that's a whole nother thing that I will give absolutely no wiggle room for with Republicans if they manage to maintain and certainly increase their majority in the next election. Because there will be no excuse at that point. There was no excuse in the first 2 years of Trump's first term. There will be no excuse if you maintain a majority in the second, because I understand the majority is so slim right now that it's not really a majority. It's enough to prevent things you don't want from getting passed, but it's not really enough to get things you do want passed. Anyway, I just want to put my 2 cents in on that real quick. Past the SAVE Act. I need to look deeper into it, and I'm going to for this weekend. The plan was to cover that one on Saturday. Because I want to make sure there's nothing in the SAVE Act that is a problem that is unrelated, because we all know how Washington likes to do these things. But as far as I can tell, there's no problem with it. As far as I have heard so far, there is no problem with it. All we want is voter ID. You can do away with the rest of it and just make it so that only citizens can vote. According to the left, according to the politicians on the left, there are no illegals that ever vote anyway. So what's the problem? There shouldn't be one. It's very simple. You know, I gotta be honest, I'm kind of surprised that there are as many of you watching right now as there are. Obviously, it's a scant few, but at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was expecting less. So shout out to you guys. I appreciate that. You can follow the show, x.com/JBU_show. Make sure you give us a like on Rumble. X and Rumble are the two places that do not censor us. So we ask that you watch there if you can, because we literally get strikes and warnings and kicked off of every other platform just about every time we stream. Especially when Alan's on the show. But just about every time we stream. It's an absolute nightmare. So please, if you can, watch on Rumble, watch on X, share the show, especially while we're live. Let other people see it too. That would be great. All right, let's get into the main story here. Obviously, I'm alone tonight, as I mentioned at the outset, so forgive me if it takes me a little bit to get stuff off screen or on screen or whatever, in order to keep talking and do all this. It's a little much, but give me just 1 second here. Case in point. All right. Anthony Enriquez. I knew I was going to mess that up at some point. So, like I said, this is an opinion piece from The Hill, but an opinion piece with a strange amount of citations. Normally in an opinion piece, you might get one or two to back up a point that they're making. You don't usually get something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 citations, 22 hyperlinks to back up his claims. I went through every single one of them over the last several hours. And oh boy, is this going to take some digging through. I promise I will try to make it as brief and streamlined and entertaining as possible. Difficult by myself, but I will do my best. But this is so important because all of this hysteria that we see right now is based on this kind of reporting. It is based on this kind of storytelling. The mainstream media and the left side of media has always been amazing storytellers. Stories are not always true. Title of the article is Trump has exposed the dangers buried in our immigration laws. This caught my attention because I thought, I thought this was just an authoritarian regime, not a regime that was just following the immigration laws. So it starts out undercutting the whole leftist narrative to begin with, which I thought was rather hilarious. And that's what got me to click on the article in the first place. It would be comforting to believe that we are witnessing in U.S. immigration policy is simply the product of one man's authoritarian impulses. It would also be wrong. President Trump did not invent the machinery now driving mass detention and unchecked arrests. Like multiple presidents before him, he is exploiting long-standing potential for abuse of power in our immigration laws that Congress has repeatedly refused to remedy. And this is why the crisis unfolding today will not automatically end when Trump leaves office, unless we push for significant change. The next administration will inherit the same tools of abuse. Just over 1 year into Trump's second term, his immigration agenda has left us all less safe. Deploying masked armed agents in cities around the country, eroding constitutional protections, and funneling billions of public dollars into privatized detention system that just set a 20-year annual record for deaths. But what makes this moment especially dangerous is not just the cruelty of his policies, it's how easily they have been implemented under existing law. Okay, so two things. One, as you can see, I keep messing with my headphones, and that's because something is wrong with the audio. I'm not sure what it is. If you can, if you're watching this right now and you can comment, preferably if you're on Rumble, YouTube, or Twitch, and you can just comment and let me know if the audio is coming across okay, I'll just ignore it, and that would be great. But I don't know why it's like doubled in my headphones, and it's driving me nuts. But I can't see any particular reason for it either. Give me just 1 second here. Monitoring's off, okay. Normally when that happens, it's because I have a set of monitor speakers out here, obviously, for when I'm editing stuff later and all that. And usually I'll leave those on so I can hear, the speakers are coming back through the microphone. But they're not on. I know that for sure. So I don't know what the deal is. I'm going to check real fast here, just see. All right. I'm just going to ignore it. Hopefully the audio's all right. Now the question is, do we want to go through each one of these hyperlinks as we approach them, or do you want me to read the article and then come back and go through them one at a time? I think we're going to go through them as we approach them, just so that we're not having to double back. It's going to be really hard for me otherwise to go through all of the claims he's about to make and not say a word about them. Like the eroding of constitutional protections. It's absolute nonsense. Okay. The first claim that he hyperlinks, as you can see right here, is the funneling billions of public dollars into privatized detention system. That is the only relatively true claim that he makes. The private prison industry looks forward. So this is a story from The Intercept. Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure The Intercept has a hard left-wing bias rating. Yeah, strong left media bias rating. So take that for what you will. There has always been private companies that operate these detention centers. That's how it works. So, yes, there is money going into them. There's really nothing for me to dispute here. I didn't dig into, is this the exact amount that's actually going? Is it this much? How much is it per immigrant? I didn't get into all that because there was too many other things to go through that I did dig into further. Because, of course, there are billions of dollars going to detention. We're deporting hundreds of thousands of people. Lots more than we have before. And yes, the claims that Obama deported this mass number of people, it's not actually true. Yes, he deported a significant number of people, but it was actually quite a bit less, all the way back to Clinton. All of them were all quite a bit less than is actually reported. I don't want to get into those numbers right now, but they are certainly doing more now than has ever been done in recent history or in modern history. According to this article, though, just to give you the brief over, the $45 billion immigration detention in the Big Beautiful Bill represented a long-sought win for private prisons. So apparently, the BBB gave $45 billion to immigration detention with a goal to double or triple the population behind bars. Now, keep in mind, when people are being held for immigration, it's temporary. It's until deportation takes place, which can vary depending on, the specific aspects of their case. Whether they need to appear before a judge first and all of these things. And then there are a select group of people that thought they could get out of deportation by claiming, even though they don't have a legitimate asylum claim, they still were able to successfully argue in front of a judge that they would be persecuted. I don't know how that works. Well, I guess you could be persecuted, which would make you qualify for asylum, but you didn't stop at the first country you came to, which for most people would be Mexico. So you still wouldn't be qualified for asylum, but still might have the persecution. I guess that might be what it is. But nonetheless, they thought they could get out of being deported by claiming that they were going to be persecuted if they were sent home, when in reality, that just means you're going to get deported somewhere else. We can discuss, whether that's right or wrong at some point. Maybe we will a little later on when we get to those cases, but the fact is you're still not a citizen. You're still not eligible to be here. And a lot of them are criminals, and we're obviously not going to allow you to stay here just because you might be punished for being a criminal back home. All right. So this is the only one. I'm not going to dig into it any further than that. Yes, there are billions of dollars being spent. Duh. Give me 1 sec. Both of my co-hosts and colleagues have been sick in recent weeks here, and now it is my turn, if you can't tell. So I might have to do that a few times. Anyway, the next claim that he made was that they just set a 20-year annual record for deaths. Now, this is true. The last year that there was as many deaths in ICE detention centers as there was in 2025 was in 2004. That sounds a little different when you say the highest year since 2004, because that wasn't that long ago. It's not as if it's, the highest number since 1952 or 1904. It's just the highest number since 2004. And is that surprising when we're deporting the highest number of people that we have in a long time? It shouldn't be. I guess it is, apparently, but it shouldn't be. So I looked into this. Of course, this article is from The Guardian, another, heavy left-wing source, which is going to be a pattern in all these, but article is more than 1 month old. Thank you, Guardian, for the warning. 2025 was ICE's deadliest year in 2 decades. That's an incorrect way to frame it. These are deaths in detention, not murders by ICE. It's 2 very different things. People die in prisons all the time. Suicide, sicknesses, diseases they had before they ever got there. It's naturally going to rise when you increase the number of people coming through. So anyway, the subtitle says these deaths I thought it said death camps. These deaths came as the Trump administration ramped up immigration enforcement, detaining a record number of people. Exactly. Anyway, sorry, I gotta flip. I just realized that I highlighted all these on the other page. Give me 1 second here. Let me find the highlights. 2025, that's what I'm looking for. There it is. Okay. Previous record set in 2004. The Trump administration detained a record number of people in December. The agency was holding 68,440 people in detention in mid-December alone. Okay? If you're wondering where I'm reading, by the way, it's out of this paragraph here. Almost 70,000 people in mid-December alone. Now, does that 32 sound a little less odd or like a little less crazy? Because that would be like, just doing the math in my head, 0.0001 0.001% of inmates died. Like, that's an incredibly low number. And far lower than the population, mind you. It would come out to, let's see, 32 deaths out of 68,000. You know, maybe like 0.4 out of every 1,000 people died or something like that. Again, that's out of my head. I'm not great at math. I won't lie. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But in the U.S. population, almost 10 out of every 1,000 people die every year from unnatural causes. This is from natural and unnatural causes. And it's 0.4. So no matter how you slice it, well, it's at least as low as that. No matter how you slice it, far less people have died in ICE detention, you know, per 1,000 than the general population. Which makes sense, too, obviously, because it's harder to die from a car accident or, you know, cliff diving or something stupid when you're behind bars and your freedom of movement has been restricted temporarily. Further, December was also the deadliest month in ICE custody. 7 people died. So, out of that 68,440, 7 people died. That would mean it would be 0.1, just over, like 1.2 people died out of every 1,000 in December. Is that really something that we need to get up in arms about? Is that really something that sounds suspicious? I don't think so. Here's the graph right here. When you look at it on a graph like this, it's also really not that crazy. Like, yes, 2004, 32. 2025, 32. If you notice, this one looks a little higher than this one. Almost like they just nudged it up a little bit. But anyway, what we don't see here is any pattern. When we look at Donald Trump's previous 4 years, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, nothing. It stands out, right? These are all amongst the lower years. 2020, which would have been starting in January under Joe Biden, there's 20. So, I don't even know. What do you... Yes, there's more deaths because there are more people going through detention. The number is still incredibly low. They go on later in the article to say the Department of Homeland Security, which encompasses ICE, denied that conditions in detention were declining. Quote, "It is a long-standing practice to provide comprehensive medical care from the moment an alien enters ICE custody," said Tricia McLaughlin. She added that the average rate of death remained low, saying that, quote, "consistent with data over the last decade, death rates in custody are 0.0007%. This is right here. They added to the end of that, but did not provide the underlying data for that figure. It's because the data's right there. There were 68,440 people in mid-December, so that's not even all of December. That's just at one point in mid-December, probably. And 7 people died. Something tells me if you divide those two numbers, you might get 0.00007. It's certainly not far enough off to warrant scrutiny. Anyway, so there you go. So there's number one. Yes, a record number of people died. But again, just because a record number of people died does not mean that something fishy is happening. So that's claim number 2. He goes on in the article to say, here's what it looks like in practice and why it concerns not just immigrants, but everyone. For years, immigration attorneys have represented people abused in ICE custody. Allegedly abused in ICE custody. Since Trump's inauguration, the number of people swept into detention has surged, including children with humanitarian protections. We've talked about this a lot recently on the show, so I'm not going to go into that one too deep either. The 5-year-old that was taken into custody in the last week, which is what this is referring to, was taken into custody because his illegal immigrant father abandoned him in ICE's care in order to try and flee. Then, ICE took him so that they could get him back to his mother, who I believe is a citizen. They arrested his father. He didn't make it very far. His mother refused to take the child. And therefore, ICE was forced to house the child with his father in detention. The family decided to do this, in my opinion, only to increase sympathy for the father. Not in the best interest of their child. He abandoned the child and tried to flee. I don't put that on ICE. And I put everything else aside, that's a POS dad. Especially if you actually believe that ICE is the Gestapo. Would you abandon your child with the Gestapo so you could get away? Of course not. Absolutely absurd. Longtime residents with deep community ties. Okay. I apologize. I forgot about this paragraph when I said this is the only one I didn't look into further. I did look into all these ones, but they're all, yes, longtime residents with deep community ties are still illegal aliens. So yes, some have still been arrested. And keep in mind, just because they are longtime residents with deep community ties and are illegal aliens doesn't also mean they're not criminals. Number one charge that I have seen, at least, for illegal aliens, DUIs. Because as we know, of course, drunk drivers never kill anybody else. And people with serious medical conditions. Once again, duh. Your immigration status has nothing to do with how deep your community ties are or your outstanding medical conditions. If you are legal, you are still subject to deportation. So there's really nothing to argue there, which is why I didn't bother with those ones either. Okay. To fill detention beds, the administration relies on aggressive interpretation of a 1996 law that created mandatory detention, denying the right to even be brought before a judge to seek release. Let's see. Now, the government claims that people who have lived in the United States for years can be subjected to mandatory detention regardless of family ties, health risk, or length of residence. There's nothing new about this claim, okay? When we click on this, what is cited here is the Robert and Ethel Kennedy Human Rights Center. This is a pro-illegal immigration, pro-amnesty type advocacy group. This is an NGO that all they do is try and bully the U.S. government into taking illegal aliens and keeping them. Of course, they're going to spin it as negatively as possible. This is not a source. This is propaganda. NGOs like this exist literally for the purpose of propaganda. Yes, it is, in fact, a 1996 law that allows mandatory detention for illegal immigrants. Yes, former presidents who were seeking amnesty anyway tried to use length of residence, family ties, and health risks, and any other reason they could find to not deport people. The only thing the Trump administration has done is go back to enforcing the law as written instead of only enforcing the bits and pieces he wants to. The Trump administration is the one that is actually following the law. It was the previous administrations that were just making up rules as they go. Oh, well, they have deep family ties, so we're not going to, they don't count. That was made up. Just like how the Biden administration, every leftist that I have talked to about this seems to be entirely unaware that the Biden administration used asylum, because there's a lot of people claiming right now, the Trump administration is going after asylum seekers. We've never done that. True. Because the Biden administration created a policy that said you could seek asylum as a way of circumventing illegal immigration. And so instead of running away from Border Patrol when people were illegally sneaking into the country, they instead ran to them and immediately said, I'm claiming asylum. Now, these people had absolutely no right and no ground to claim asylum. Asylum is an international agreement between primarily Western countries because, of course, we are the only ones that actually do this. And it has specific rules and specific requirements. You have to claim asylum in the first country you come to that is not at war, which again, as I said earlier, for most people would be Mexico. And you have to be directly persecuted for race, religion, or a handful of other things. There are other stipulations too, but those two right there immediately eliminate anybody from Central and South America and most of the world. First and foremost, because America is hardly the first place you come to. That would only be the first place you come to for Canadians and Mexicans. That's it. Anybody else would not qualify for asylum on that rule alone. But then on the second rule, nobody in Mexico is persecuted because of their race or religion. Same with Canada, obviously. And therefore, there is nobody that is eligible for asylum in the United States. Now, because we are a quite benevolent society, we have looked the other way on the first country you come to rule for a long time and accepted asylees from places that had legitimate persecution that met the rest of the criteria, such as the South Africans that Trump recently brought over, which, by the way, was like 50 people. Not 5 million, 50. Anyway. So again, they're following the law, not just picking and choosing. Oh, the point of that rant was the Biden administration did that because they knew it would take 10 years to get these people into court for the court to go, you have no legitimate asylum claim. But at that point, they've been here for 10 years. They're banking on the fact another Democrat is in power and can hopefully get them amnesty. That was the goal. It was never legal. They never changed the law. It would violate the Constitution in and of itself. It would violate the amnesty agreements that we have with the other nations. And it would violate U.S. federal and most state laws. Well, many state laws. Not all state laws have immigration rules, but mostly just border states. But anyway, the point is, they just made this up and decided to do it, and that's a big part of why so many people were allowed in. The result has been explosive growth in detention, Anthony continues. As of early January, nearly 70,000 people were held in ICE custody. This number, so again, Guardian article, number of people in ICE detention hits record high. Data shows ICE held more than 68,400 people as of 14 December, breaking previous high set at the beginning of December. This is true. From the best that I can tell anyway, according to the ICE data, they had 68,000 people. But as you can see, where are we at here? Hang on. Oh, okay. As you can see, it wasn't crazy compared to the months before, and obviously goes way up from the Biden administration. There's a reason why this graph is so far zoomed in. If we were to zoom it out a little farther, you would see up here, down here, and then going back up. Because the Biden administration detained almost no one, as we know. Now, the criminal history thing. So they get into the criminal history thing here as well, and the number of people that were held with a criminal history. That doesn't include criminal histories from other countries. It only includes whether or not, it also doesn't include known crimes. It only includes successful United States prosecutions, which is entirely different than not a criminal. Two very different things. Person could have been arrested for murder in Venezuela. They would say that they have no criminal history in this case, because they were not successfully prosecuted within the United States during their time here. Moving back, up from roughly 39,000 a year earlier. Again, obviously, there were very few people being detained under Biden. 90% are detained in privately run facilities. Also a true number, really nothing to get into there. Unlike the prison system, which is actually almost, it's like 7% of prisons or something. It's an incredibly small number. Hold on. What percentage of U.S. prisons are private? I might be underestimating at 7, but it is a very small amount. No, 7.4% according to usafacts.org. Let's see. Yeah. 7.4% of prisoners as of 2022 were in a private facility. However, because of the short-term nature of detention for ICE detention, it's primarily private facilities, and that's because of the short-term nature, and also because there is a drastic change in how many people need to be detained month to month. So it's a lot easier to have, the private sector deal with that rapid expansion, rapid decline. If the government were trying to do this, the government would have to maintain, let's say, so 68,000 was a record number in mid-December, supposedly, at least as of the Biden administration. They would probably have to maintain 100,000 beds at any given time, even when we're only detaining 10,000 people this month. Whereas with the private industry, they're only paying for the beds they're using. So it just makes more sense in that case. That's just my estimation on why it's private instead of government. I don't know, but private's always cheaper. So, and people tend to prefer to be in private facilities. Not always, but most often, that's the case. All right, just days after, 90% are detained in private-run facilities. The primary beneficiaries are not public safety or due process, but corporations pocketing our tax dollars. We'll get into the due process thing more as we go through some more of these here. Just days after Congress approved a record $28 billion annual allocation to ICE. Well, Congress approved it, but it's not actually law, because as far as I know, DHS the DHS funding is still on the table. That's the one thing that they haven't passed so far. So I don't think that that's an actual. Let's see. Big budget act creates deportation industrial complex. Well, that was kind of the point, yes. Biggest piece of the pie for enforcement operations in the United States will go to Immigration and Customs Enforcement to arrest, detain, and deport illegal immigrants. Congress gave ICE $75 billion over 4 years, approximately $18.7 billion each year. Added to the $10 billion Congress already appropriated to ICE for fiscal year 2025 in March. ICE now has $27.8 billion at its disposal this year. That figure is nearly triple ICE's entire budget for 2024. That's because the Biden administration cut ICE's budget, while increasing the IRS's budget 50-fold, by the way. $80 billion they gave the IRS. Supposedly, they were going to make all that money back by going after billionaires. So far, they've recuperated less than $1 billion. So we spent $80 billion on 80,000 new IRS employees. They were only going to go after billionaire and millionaire tax cheats, and they haven't even recuperated $1 billion so far. In fact, it was, the last time I checked, it was like barely $1 million. I think it was like 700 and... No, I'm sorry. It was barely $100 million. It was 78 point something million that they had recuperated. Almost nothing. And they started targeting middle class. Shocking. I digress. 2/3 of ICE's funding, $45 billion over 4 years, will be used to detain immigrants, potentially more than 100,000 people per year. The $11.25 billion added to ICE's annual detention budget is a 400% increase from last year and exceeds the Department of Justice budget request for fiscal year 2026 for the entire federal prison system, which houses about 155,000 people. That in part is due to, 1, the need to build new facilities, and 2, the constantly changing nature. Obviously, when you have a steady population, you know how many are going to be there for the next 5, for the next 10, even for the next 20 years. It's a lot easier than if your fluctuation's constantly going up and down, as I just demonstrated or illustrated. The law explicitly allows ICE to build more facilities to jail families, often mothers with their children. It doesn't specifically allow, it specifically requires. And that is because of leftists under the Obama administration. They were pissed that we were separating families. Deportations still have to happen, so what's the only other alternative? Often mothers with their children, and doesn't align with decades-old sentiment that addresses the treatment of immigrant children. The budget also gives approximately $30 billion a year over 4 years to ICE to track down, arrest, and deport immigrants, allowing it to hire 10,000 new officers. So there you go. Let's see. Private prison giant GEO Group announced raises for its top executives. According to investing.com, GEO Group extends executive chairman contract, raises bonuses for top officers, which has seen its stock surge 74% over the past year, according to Investing Pro data, announces changes to executive compensation and leadership contracts, according to a statement released in a SEC filing. On Monday, the company entered into an amendment to the employment agreement with Executive Chair George C. Cooley. The amendment extends Dr. Zoli's employment term as executive chairman from June 30th, 2026 to April 2nd, 2029. The agreement also updates his base salary to match the amount previously approved by the company's compensation committee in February 2025. In addition, both his annual target cash bonus and target stock award were increased from 100 to 150% of his base salary. On July 3rd, the compensation committee also approved changes to the compensation package of the chief executive officer, J. David Donahue. The committee raised Mr. Donahue's annual target cash incentive and annual equity incentive award from 100 to 150%. In other recent news, the GEO Group announced its acquisition of the Western Region Detention Facility in San Diego for $60 million, which is expected to close in 2025. This facility currently generates approximately $57 million in annualized revenue under a contract from the U.S. Marshals Service. Additionally, GEO Group secured a $147 million contract with U.S. Marshals Service in Transportation and Detention Officer Services, expected to bring about $29 million annually over 5 years. In another development, the U.S. District Court authorized full intake of GEO's Adelanto ICE Processing Center, projected to add $31 million in annualized revenue. Texas Capital Securities initiated coverage on GEO Group with a buy rating, citing potential revenue growth from increased border security funding and a target price of $30. The firm forecasts GEO's revenue could grow from $2.4 billion to $3.2 billion by 2027. However, disturbance at GEO's Newark Immigration Detention Center was reported. Though details remain sparse, these developments indicate significant activity and potential revenue growth for the company. Okay, this is the one thing I'm not going to defend in any way, shape, or form. This is the type of thing that, I mean, on one hand, I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Just simply speaking, like, the CEO and whoever else that said managed to increase their salary there, they secured new contracts for the business. Contracts that's going to drastically increase the revenue. That usually comes with a raise. So, like, in that sense, I don't know. On the other side, I would have to, I would have to do a lot of research into this to find out what were the other people, what were the other companies quoting, what is a reasonable amount, how much are they spending per person, or is the government getting a good deal or not? Generally speaking, I don't like seeing companies getting government contracts and then immediately rewarding their executives for it, especially if that doesn't include rewarding their staff for it. And like I said, I have no interest in defending it, but I'm not necessarily condemning it either, because I just simply don't know anything about the company GEO, and I don't frankly care to. The fact is, the CEO was able to secure a massive contract and windfall for the company. That is the type of thing you get a raise for as a CEO. Seems kind of straightforward, but anyway. With the support of every president over the last 3 decades, GEO Group, with the support of every president over the last 30 years. So not just Trump. GEO Group, Core Civic, and other private prison companies have built a business model that maximizes profit from tax dollar handouts through understaffing, overcrowding, and cutting corners on food, medical care, and basic safety. Those are some lofty claims that he says without even adding so much as an allegedly. And frankly, if one of these companies were to sue him, I would not be shocked. Because this is where we get into the meat of the story on whether or not the Trump administration is really funding, these horrific crimes against humanity, essentially. I mean, think about these accusations that the Trump administration, the U.S. government, ICE, and these private corporations, GEO Group, Core Civic, and other private prisons, have built a business model that maximizes profit from tax dollars through understaffing, overcrowding, cutting corners on food, medical care, and basic safety. Now, notice that basic safety isn't tagged, which kind of interesting, but let's take a look at each one of these. Okay, understaffing claims. This comes from Bloomberg. Whistleblower alleged fraud cover-up at ICE Detention Center. Homeland Security's Inspector General had previously urged the immediate removal of detainees from the facility due to, quote, critical staffing shortages. That's true, and that did happen. What they don't mention is that happened several years ago, and since then, the government has actually awarded them, as well as independent agencies, have actually awarded them for turning their stuff around and for being a model detention center. You get quotes like this here. Hang on, let me find which one did I forget to highlight this one? Hang on one second. I gotta find the highlighted one here. Okay. What does it say? ICE Core Civic. Alright, so this one's on Core Civic. Man, I forgot to highlight this one. Oh well, we'll just go through it real quick. Private prison operator regularly falsified documents during federal inspections of migrant detention facility in New Mexico to cover up chronic understaffing and other shortcomings, according to a letter sent to Congress Tuesday based on allegations by whistleblowers who worked at the facility. So these are ex-employees who no ex-employee ever has ever held a grudge about anything, have they? I took a look at the document that they sent to the Government Accountability Project here. Matter of fact, maybe that's why I can't find it. Hang on. Louisiana. All right, I don't know what I did with it. But anyway, they say the Government Accountability Project, a national, nonpartisan. Keep in mind, just because an NGO puts that in the title, doesn't make it true. They can literally title themselves the nonpartisan NGO. There's nothing that prevents that, and there's nothing that makes it true other than they called themselves that. A national, nonpartisan nonprofit, and also keep in mind that nonprofit is generally as shady or more shady than the average corporation. Anyway, Whistleblower Protection and Advocacy Organization represents multiple whistleblowers who report serious concerns about operations and conditions at the Torrance County Detention Facility, an ICE detention center in New Mexico. These whistleblowers with a cumulative decade experience working at Torrance for Core Civic, the for-profit private prison operator of the facility, have raised the disclosures outlined in this letter to the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General pursuant to their rights, and under the same provision urge Congress to exercise its oversight function to investigate the fraud, waste, and abuse occurring at the facility. That's interesting. The fraud, waste, and abuse? Fraud, waste, and abuse. That was Doge's tagline. It almost sounds like they're saying that they're wasting the money rather than they're, abusing inmates, basically, which is the way it's framed in the article here. Likely fraud and abusive conditions is how it was framed in the article. Core Civic opened Torrance. So keep in mind, one of the, as I open the show with, okay, credibility is everything. And if somebody is not willing to put their name to a claim, and especially if that somebody is not willing to put their name to the claim and has a reason to be angry or bitter or just generally dislike whoever they're whistleblowing about, that's a good reason to only take the claims at face value, or not to take the claims at face value, or whatever, right? It's a good reason to question the claims more thoroughly. In my opinion, it's absolutely insane today, and this is. Sorry, it's getting exceedingly hot in here. Running all this stuff causes the computer to go into overdrive, which causes it to just blow hot air. And because there's a lot of sound dampening and stuff in the studio, it gets hot as hell very quickly. Anyway, a argument and a conversation that I get into frequently with individuals is, over claims that nobody put their name to. They just wrote it. Hang on 1 second. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Let me get back on the screen here. Oh, I apologize for the interruption there. Being late at night, I wasn't expecting any interruptions, of course, but seems my son is woken up sick in the middle of the night, so I knew I heard something off, and so he came in all upset, obviously. So anyway, forgive me for the interruption. We'll get right back on track here. Moving on. As far as this first claim, back to where we were here, from the workplace whistleblowers that refused to put their name, or maybe I shouldn't say refused, but didn't put their name to their accusations. They just claimed to be former employees, and their experience spans about a decade, according to the document. Some of their general allegations include, as we can see here, chronic and dangerous understaffing, violations of workers' rights under the ADA, which anybody who has ever worked anywhere, basically, but especially a corporation, knows there are a lot of people that like to abuse that ADA thing. It's an absolutely absurd regulation that creates an ungodly amount of headache and cost for employers, with usually minimal benefit for things that were never really a problem to begin with. Of course, ostensibly, it's about, making sure that somebody who's in a wheelchair has wheelchair access, a ramp into the building and a bathroom and, bathroom access and things like that. Those things were already taken care of, and generally something that most workplaces complied with anyway. Yes, there was occasionally an issue, but not usually a long-standing one. That's not what this does. This is what allows people to bring their frickin' dog everywhere because they claim it's an emotional support pet. Grow up. And look, I'm not saying that there are not a handful of people out there that legitimately need a dog for specific purposes, up to and including emotional support, perhaps if you are a veteran with PTSD or something along those lines. But we all know it is widely abused, and mostly people whose parents refused to tell them no when they were a kid. And now they expect the world to do the same, and for whatever reason, leftists are just also happy to. It's not about punishing these people, but it's not my job to take care of people who won't take care of themselves type thing. I know I'm getting off on a tangent a little bit here, but anyway. They say discriminatory and hostile work environment. They claim that leadership at Torrance perpetrated a systematic culture of contempt and suspicion of people of color. Falsification and misrepresentation. Whistleblowers are aware that a warden colluded with an inspector to falsify a safety audit. Something about non-functional, inaccessible eye wash safety stations. Additionally, Core Civic routinely falsified interpretation documents in violation of PBNDES requirements. All of these unlawful efforts created unsafe environment. Denied medical care. Denied hospital transport and treatment. No informed consent for medical care. Holloway Medical consults in violation of HIPAA. Hallway Medical Consults in violation of HIPAA, excuse me. Core Civic held patient screenings and interviews in open hallways and in rooms with open doors, within earshot of other people, in violation of patient privacy requirements. See, this is the type of thing. Leftists can't get their way. Democrats can't get their way, but particularly leftist radicals can't get their way because the average American is in favor of curbing illegal immigration. So they go through things like this to try and force it, to make it so difficult and complex. We're giving free health care to people that broke our laws and are being deported. I don't care if the freaking door was open. I don't think that people that don't pay taxes here should have HIPAA protections. And I don't think that's a radical statement. I don't think that's a hateful statement. It's not hateful. I don't have any fucking protections in their country, do I? No. And I don't expect to either, because I'm not a fucking asshole. Sorry for cussing. But I always do that. I always censor myself once and then cuss anyway 2 seconds later. It's just I'm just so sick of this stuff. Like, I'm sorry you got free treatment by a doctor and somebody behind you in line waiting for free treatment might have heard. My doctor, many doctors that I've been to, if that is violating HIPAA, have violated HIPAA many times regarding myself, regarding people I know and love, my kid, my wife, etc. Fiance, not wife, but regardless. I've never once complained about it or cared. And yes, some of that's personal information. But generally, when somebody overhears, it's somebody who I don't even know who they are. They don't know who I am. I don't care. I understand the doctor's just trying to do his job, but it's not like he's trying to snitch on me. I just cannot believe, like, the level of entitlement you have to feel to break into a country, take a job away from somebody that lives in that country, send most of that money out of the country back to your home country, maintain allegiance to your home country, get caught, get a free ride back home without any punishment whatsoever, and you get to keep all the money you made. And while you're in detention, you're going to complain because somebody might have overheard your free medical advice? It's absolutely incredible. And the amount of leftists that will call me a Nazi for saying something like that. Like, I blame my parents' generation for so much. So much. I think the reason why these things anger me so much is because I am a very naturally caring and compassionate person. Like, for a man especially, I am definitely more on the feminine, caring, compassionate scale than typical hard-headed man. And so, that being my nature, I think that when I see people abusing that to the nth degree in every way, shape, and possible, in every way, every shape and form possible, whatever it is I'm trying to say there, it just really, really gets under my skin, obviously. They claim unsanitary, unsafe conditions, Dr. reek of alcohol on the job. There's a couple things here that are specific, but most of these are very general. Reeking of alcohol on the job is fairly specific. And I mention that because a specific accusation I'm more inclined to put a little bit of faith into, at least. But general accusations like from former employees that won't even put their name to the accusation, like, come on. To even include that as evidence without corroboration, without some sort of proof. It's worth noting that both the company and DHS deny all of these things outright. And by the way, I'm not even sure. Let's look when this was filed here. February 18th, 2025. Donald Trump took office January 20th, 2025. So, these accusations are under Joe Biden, not under Donald Trump. Just to be clear. Again, take that for what you will. Now, let's go back to this article here. Oh, shoot. I deleted that. It was actually two different articles. Oh, no, it wasn't. There we go. Letter urged Congress for what it called likely fraud. In an email, Core Civic spokesman said the company had not received the letter. We vehemently deny these allegations and have no evidence that would support that our staff at the Torrance County Detention Facility falsified documents or colluded with inspectors during any federal inspection. Core Civic's Director of Public Affairs. He pointed to audits by ICE's Office of Detention Oversight that gave the facility a good rating for the 2024 fiscal year and a superior rating for the 2025 fiscal year, as well as its accreditation by the American Correctional Association, a trade organization he said gave TCDF a score of 100% in April 2024. Now again, first, these people are willing to put their name to the accreditations at least. That means a little something. But that's basically as true as the accusations. And so, since we have that, to include that without any sort of corroborating evidence is nonsense. It just is. All right. Next claim. Let's see. That was understaffing. Overcrowding. Overcrowding plagues detention units amid Trump's immigration blitz. This one comes from Axios. Again, a heavy left-wing bias source. Fine, but I'm going to point it out. This according to Brittany Gibson. Now, first of all, I'm not really sure, first of all, what is overcrowding, right? Is overcrowding that the facility normally has 100 people, but there's 250, but it's actually a 500-person facility? Is overcrowding that it's a 500-person facility, but there's 505 people there? 550 people there? Or 1,000 people there? Of course, there's no specification. Anyway, days without showers, sleeping on floors, 200 people confined in a space for 85, allegedly. Some immigration detention units are so crowded that non-citizens arrested in the crackdown are living in inhumane conditions, according to attorneys for the detainees. The only person with less credibility in making a complaint without corroboration. Again, I'm not saying that they can't make complaints. I'm saying without corroborating evidence, without proof, former employees and even worse, detainees who are there against their will are not exactly credible sources, are they? Even worse than that, the attorneys for these detainees are not credible sources. The crowding is just one sign of a system under stress. Why it matters. The Trump administration's goal of deporting millions of people has led to officials to jam more than 46,000 detainees into a system designed to hold no more than about 40,000. So it might be designed to hold 46,000. We just know it's no more than about 40. You see the wordplay there? It's intentional. That's according to ICE records. Officials are, quote, scrambling to arrange more detention space across the U.S. and abroad. They're sending detainees they've deemed as dangerous on controversial and legally questionable flights to foreign prisons without giving them court hearings. Not the case. They have deportation orders. They're being deported. What that country does with them once they arrive in that country is that country's business. These people are being put in prison in El Salvador, for example, because they are criminals. They've committed crimes in El Salvador and would have been in jail anyway. But instead, they fled to America. And then we send them back. It's just like if with Brittany Griner, okay, got arrested for breaking the law in Russia, went to jail in Russia. Now, it's a U.S. citizen. Despite the fact she broke the law, I do think that our government should get her back from a hostile nation. If it wasn't a hostile nation, I would be a little less concerned. But it was a hostile nation. Our government should put the hammer down and get U.S. citizens back. But let's assume for a second, and she doesn't. I'm not trying to tarnish Brittany Griner's name specifically, but let's just assume Brittany Griner had a criminal record here in the United States and was supposed to be in jail, but she had fled to Russia and then got arrested there. We fought for her return. This is like Russia saying, you can't put her in jail when they give her back to us. Would we listen to Russia? No, we wouldn't. And El Salvador doesn't have to listen to us when we say you shouldn't put him in jail. That's up to El Salvador, not to us. Our job is to deport them because they are not citizens here. This conflation of this, and that's partially Trump's fault. I criticized him for it at the time. He shouldn't have been bragging about it and making it sound like some great thing. It's just normal business that already happens every day in every country. And it's El Salvador's business, not ours. Anyway. And the whole without a court hearing thing. Well, their criminal charges are in El Salvador, so of course they wouldn't have a court hearing here. Second, as far as the deporting, they had a deportation order. That is the legal requirement. So anyway, remember, this is all alleged according to the lawyers of detainees. At a time when Department of Homeland Security is desperate for billions more to build an infrastructure that could come close to handling the surge, conditions in the system's detention facilities are allegedly deteriorating. Again, this is all denied by the system itself. And the government. In the government. This is all back in March 2025, by the way, a month and a half after Trump took office and before we gave billions of dollars to this system. So it would kind of seem that maybe these problems were resolved if they did exist in the first place. Oftentimes conditions aren't great, but this seems definitely out of the norm. This type of extended overcrowding, said Paul Chavez, director of the litigation program at Americans for Immigrant Justice, an NGO. He said that at a detention center in Miami, about 200 people were being held in a room meant for 85 at one point. Okay, but what does that mean? A room meant for 85? Does that mean that that's the fire department's occupation? That's how many people were originally housed there, but they had to up it? How much space was there when there was 200 people in there per person? How much space do we have to give for somebody that is being held temporarily while they await a deportation flight home, or in some cases, a court case? Because despite the claim a minute ago, many do have court cases they have to go through before they leave. There's no answer to that. It just says we're just supposed to take this lawyer for the pro-illegal immigration NGO's word that it was a room meant for 85, but there were about 200 people in it. Is that your guess, or did you count? How do you know? One client was held in a room meant for 50 people that was holding 90. Again, no details on either of those numbers. If you have a building that's meant for 600 people and now you have twice that in there, it'll inevitably lead to issues. Detainees are often hesitant to speak out about conditions in detention, particularly if they're trying to get an immigration court to allow them to stay in the U.S. Yeah. But conditions in detention have been so poor that some immigrants prefer deportation to spending more time in the facilities, Chavez said. Yeah, let's keep in mind that if people are staying in these facilities long term, it's because they're trying to stay here. It's because they are going through a court process. They're choosing to stay in detention longer instead of just being deported in order to attempt to use our laws to force us to make them stay, allow them to stay. Fine. But you're choosing to stay in detention at that point instead of just being deported. That is worth noting. That's part of what the problem is here, is the fact that we don't just deport them like we should. In my opinion, there should be no question. If you are not legal, if you enter the country illegally, if you made a false asylum claim because you never had a reason in the first place to claim asylum, it's just deported, gone, back home. The place that, while you're here, you're flying their flag anyway. Like, it's just really, it's getting really hard for me to... Maybe it's wrong, but my sympathy and my empathy goes to Americans first. Goes to my family first, goes to my friends second, and then it goes to my neighbors, and then to Americans as a whole. And then it goes to the rest of the world. But there is a priority list there. And the fact is, these people are causing harm. We're going to talk about Cato's recent release of studies here in a couple days, because I've been digging through those as well to find out where the truth lies. But the fact is, there is harm that is done by illegal immigration. Even in, you can cite whatever you want. We can all see it. Especially if you live in a state like mine that contains a major sanctuary city. And so you see an excessive amount of illegal immigration. I'll show you, or I'll give you a perfect example. Just today, saw what is almost assuredly an illegal immigrant selling fruit on a stand on the side of the road. Now, he doesn't have a social security number, so he definitely doesn't have a permit. He definitely doesn't have a business license to sell that food. He definitely, if he doesn't have a business license, he isn't following health codes. Or at least nobody's inspecting it to find out. And he's not paying taxes. Now, if my son were to set up a lemonade stand on the corner, there'd be a city official here to shut him down within the hour. Which is a whole nother issue we'll go into another time. But if I were to do it, it would take 10 minutes before somebody was over here harassing me. Where's my business license? Prove you paid your taxes last year. And it shouldn't be that way. Don't get me wrong. You should be able to just set up a stand on the corner and sell your fruit if you have fruit to sell. That should be fine. That's part of being a free country. But the fact is, Americans can't do that. But we're just supposed to look the other way when illegal immigrants do it. So they can make money under the table, but you can't. You will go to jail. And trust me, they will separate you from your wife and kids, or your husband and kids, or your family, one way or another, when you go to jail. Next claim. Yes, I know. I could spend an indefinite amount of time on each one of these, but I'm trying not to be. I'm trying not to go too deep. The point that I'm showing is that, it's not that there's a particular bombshell anywhere. Although there are a couple, as we get a little further, there's a couple where like they clearly contradict themselves. But there's nothing here that's corroborated, and it's all from people who could have an agenda in claiming these things. And then also, as we've seen, everything we've read so far, one was February, one was March, they're all like a month into the Trump administration. We used to be really good as Americans about understanding the difference between allegations and fact. Between somebody that is willing to put their name on the record and somebody that isn't. Anonymous sources, right? We used to be really good about upholding the principle of innocent until proven guilty. And I'm not saying that that principle applies to corporations or even to the government. It's not supposed to apply to the government, it's supposed to apply to the people. What I am saying is that we've gone so far the other direction from that it's now believe anybody and everybody that says something that could harm the person I don't, or thing that I don't like. If the rest of you guys are going to do that, go ahead. I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to do it. Even if I'm the last person on earth that says this guy's innocent until he's proven guilty. Or we need some corroborating evidence before we just assume guilt. This is the problem with releasing all the Epstein files. Because the vast majority of those Epstein files that were released in the last dump, they were anonymous calls to a tip line. All those crazy stories you've read that were found in the Epstein files, they were anonymous calls to a tip line, some of which were followed up, surely, but many were found to be entirely baseless and uncredible, whatever. But the amount of idiots out there that go, well, the government wrote it down on paper, so it must be true. They have to write it down. No matter how outrageous the claim, they have to record it. It doesn't make it true. The very fact that Epstein himself was almost undoubtedly a pedophile. In fact, I'm pretty sure we can say undoubtedly, right? Because of the cases that he did actually make it through back in the early 2000s or whatever, does not mean for sure that anyone hanging out with him knew or was a pedophile themselves. Doesn't mean they're not. But the very fact they knew him, or spoke to him, or spent time with him, isn't proof of guilt. It might be some evidence toward that, but it's not proof. And now we're just supposed to, anybody whose name gets thrown out in connection with Epstein, we're just supposed to go, oh yeah, well, obviously a pedophile. No! Again, even if I'm the last guy on earth, no. That's not how it works. There has to be proof. Real, tangible evidence. Anyway, next claim here is another Axios article from apparently Axios New Orleans. People detained in Louisiana ICE facility face rampant abuse, according to new report. They show this photo here of what looks like a pretty gross shower. And it says, a shower area inside the Richwood Correctional Center, an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Monroe. Photo, Department of Homeland Security, Office of Inspector General. So apparently somebody's following up on it, or this photo wouldn't exist, first of all. Second of all, there's no date on the photo. You think that was on purpose? I'll bet you it wasn't a photo from 2025. I'll bet you it's either a photo, if not from the Biden administration, maybe the Obama or Bush administration, for all we know. People detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Louisiana were subject to, quote, rampant abuse, including prolonged solitary confinement, cockroach-infested food, and physical and sexual abuse, according to a new report from a collection of immigrants' rights groups. From a collection of immigrant rights groups. It says report, so it must be true. There is nobody that could have more reason for lying in this particular instance than non-profit immigrants' rights groups. And just think to yourself, if they are lying, what are the repercussions for that? Oh, that's right, there are none. What are the upsides? Plenty. Generally speaking, at minimum, more donations. Oh. Louisiana is home to 8 ICE detention facilities and a staging facility that acts as a jail, according to the report, and all are located in central or north Louisiana. The New Orleans Immigration and Customs Field Office oversees the facilities, the report says, and all but one of them are privately run. Sorry, I guess I could do this. There you go. The 108-page report, which is based on interviews with more than 6,000 people during site visits over a 2-year period, according to them, says New Orleans ICE office has a pattern of holding people in detention for longer than its counterparts elsewhere, detailing multiple examples of people held at least 3 months after they were ordered removed. Okay, there could be any number of reasons for that has nothing to do with the facility itself. But of course, they just don't mention that part. Interviewees also reported unsanitary living conditions and meals, citing experiences where the facilities ran out of toilet paper and menstrual products. Wonder if that was during COVID, when everywhere did. Don't know, because they didn't date it. Offered spoiled food at mealtimes, were infested by pests and mold, didn't have enough warm clothing, and had feces vomit-covered sleeping areas. Some also cited limited or no access to medical and mental health care. I don't know why we would provide mental health care for temporary detainees that are being sent home, but I'm not saying not medical care, I'm just saying specifically mental health care. I don't know that they need psychiatrists. Regardless, do you really believe this? Like, just on the surface. Have you ever seen a U.S. jail, an ICE facility, anything that even remotely comes close to these accusations in the United States of America? I haven't. I'm not saying that terrible places don't exist, but don't you think if it was this rampant, this widespread, these newspapers wouldn't have written one article and left it? They would be screaming from their mountaintops every day. But you notice, there's no photos. And yes, we saw one photo a second ago from an unknown date that was taken by the government itself, by an accountability office. There's no photos. There's no secret recordings. There's no videotape. There's nobody going on the record, even with a blurred face, to say these accusations. It is all through intermediaries who have a reason and generally a profit motive to make and lob these accusations, almost all of which are entirely unprovable. It would be one thing if you had some evidence over here, but nothing over here, but like, this kind of makes sense with this one that we do have evidence for. There's nothing. And again, the deeper we go, the more contradictory it starts to become. Where was I? Unsanitary living conditions. In many instances, detainees report being left hungry and laughed at by guards as they navigated unclean spaces and rotten food. The researchers... Okay. Never mind. The researchers also describe extensive use of solitary confinement, including one case in which a Pakistani immigrant describes being held in solitary for more than 200 days for requesting meals appropriate for his diabetes. Really? They threw him in solitary for 200 days because he politely requested for meals? Or do you think maybe because he acted violently or did something that violated the rules that get you put in solitary? I don't know what the specific rules are for that location, but I'm sure they have them, and I'm sure that the detainees there are well aware of what gets you put in solitary. This is a problem in every prison in the world, not just the United States. There are certain people that they just need the attention, I guess. I don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. But they just have to always be causing problems. We all know them. We all know who they are in the real world. We see them all the time. They know if they complain enough, eventually, they might not get everything they want. But these days, and certainly days when leftists are in charge of everything, they can get 50% of what they want, maybe. Even 10% of what they want. What they deserve is nothing, generally speaking. And I'm not saying that they deserve to live in poor conditions. I just don't believe it. Because I have never seen anything with my own eyes or been told by somebody who has the credibility, who can prove that they worked, that they had inside knowledge. And yes, I was going to say that they had worked there, but they have to put their name to it. Otherwise, how do we even know they worked there? That alleges these sorts of things. I don't buy it. And again, you don't think if these detainees were being given rotten food, being forced to sleep on piles of shit and piss, sorry for the graphicness, but that's what it says, and didn't have toilet paper and menstrual products, you think you'd get an occasional report by an immigration rights group? Or do you think you'd have people rioting in the streets? Do you think maybe the detainees' families, who most of which are in the United States, would be rioting in the streets, at the very least. I mean, let's just be honest. The researchers also describe extensive... Oh, I already read that. The report was produced through the partnership between the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, same one we referred to earlier, the ACLU of Louisiana, Immigration Services and Legal Advocacy, and the National Immigration Project. Notice that there's a lot of these same organizations that keep popping up in various random reports, none of which seem to coincide with each other either. I mean, they all are generally speaking about abuses, but not the same ones or ongoing ones, or they're all different problems from different random times. Researchers collected data, conducted interviews between April 22-24. They conducted follow-up interviews, took 7 stakeholder tours, and reviewed intake sheets. Sounds like a lot of cooperation by these private prisons that are evil. They let them take tours and review intake sheets. They let them conduct 6,000 interviews with detainees. Last I checked, detainees have no right to be interviewed by the press. So the facility facilitated that because they're evil? Like, it's just contradictory. It's all contradictory. And it doesn't add up the more you put it together. In a statement provided to The Guardian, ICE says the agency continuously reviews and enhances civil detention operations to ensure non-citizens are treated humanely, protected from harm, provided appropriate medical and mental health care, and receive the rights and protections to which they are entitled. ICE says it provides detained people with medical screenings within 12 hours and full health assessments within 2 weeks of their arrival at its facilities, as well as access to emergency medical care. Next claim, medical care. Okay, so this one in particular, and just a heads up, this one gets a little more graphic. Not terribly, and obviously I'll censor it. But this is the first one that I came across. This one is from the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization and Freedom for Immigrants Center. So 2 of the organizations we've been dealing with ad nauseum here on these reports. This is another report signed by multiple people and sent to multiple people. And when you hear the complaint, it's shocking. But then I started reading through the details of the complaint and realized some of this doesn't quite add up. Like, it's contradictory. It's contradicting itself. And the more you hear it, the more you realize, like, kind of seems like one of those people that knows that the more they complain, the more they try to find some sort of technical rule that they can use against our system, the better off they can make it for themselves. Or just the attention is what they want. Who knows? But first, let's start with the outrageous claims that are made that, of course, both weren't investigated, if there's any credibility to them, and are atrocious, if true. Sexual abuse, medical abuse, amounting to torture. Okay, those are 2 extremely lofty accusations. Medical abuse amounting to torture, and sexual abuse, which also amounts to torture. Keep that in mind. use of force, life-threatening medical neglect, verbal abuse, retaliation, and violations of First Amendment rights against Daniel Alfredo Cortez da la Valle against Central Louisiana Ice Processing Center in Jena, Louisiana. Now, the one thing that we do have in this case is a specific name. And this is why you don't typically get specific details on these sorts of accusations. Because anytime you do, and for whatever reason they still thought they had something here, or at least were willing to try it. But the problem when you do start giving specifics is it starts to become easier and easier to see the contradictions in those specifics. Dear Inspector General, and they address to a bunch of other people too. Freedom for Immigrants and Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, along with the ACLU Louisiana, Detention Watch Network, Home is Here, NOLA, Immigrant Services and Legal Advocacy, Louisiana Aid, Mures Lucadoros, R. Nuestra Voz, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Tulane Immigrant Rights Clinic, and Vocus Unidas submit this complaint on behalf of Daniel Alfredo Cortez de la Valle, however you pronounce it, regarding violations of the Performance-Based National Detention Standards PBNDS 2011, which at Central Louisiana Ice Processing Facility, which they shortened to CLIPC, we'll just call it CLIP, is contractually obligated to uphold Louisiana state, tort, and federal law, the United States Constitution, and international human rights law. Mr. Cortez de la Valle, we're just going to say Mr. Cortez going forward, has been detained since December 13th, 2022 at CLIP, an ICE facility operated by the GEO Group in Jena, Louisiana. He is 32 years old and has lived in the United States for 25 years. He is married to a United States citizen and has 2 citizen children, a 10-year-old daughter and a 17-month-old son. It begs the question, why didn't you spend any of that 25 years becoming a legal citizen or at least a permanent resident so that you weren't ever risking being taken away from your kids? See, that's the first thing that I always ask people when they're like, well, how can you justify taking away this poor person from they've been here for 25 years, their kids and their wife are American citizens. Okay, but that's 25 years he continued to break our law without any regard for just becoming a legal citizen or a legal resident. Why? There's never a good answer. If there is, I've yet to hear it. I, of course, empathize with the family. I understand how incredibly difficult that would be. Why did you wait 25 years to bother to do anything about it? That's not really something you put off for later. Most likely, what you did is you decided to risk it, and it worked out for 25 years, and now you want me to be upset that you got away with it for 25 years and finally got caught, but it's been 25 years, so you got 25 years. There you go. That's 25 years of my empathy right there. It's like saying, yeah, I committed a murder, but it was like 25 years ago, bro. Why would you arrest me now? No, I'm not saying that illegal immigrants are murderers. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the argument makes no sense. Prior to his detention by ICE, Mr. Cortez was a theatrical lighting director with an events production company. I thought these people only worked jobs Americans wouldn't do. I thought they weren't taking American jobs. You telling me an American wouldn't be a theatrical lighting director? I have to make that face an awful lot. I kind of don't like doing it, but for some reason keep doing it. But it's like the only face you can make. Because it just... everything contradicts everything. The more you dig into it. Anyway. Mr. Cortez has reported to the Freedom Immigrants National Immigration Hotline and Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights that he has experienced sexual abuse, medical abuse amounting to torture, severe medical neglect, use of force, and verbal abuse related to a seizure condition. Now, maybe it's just me, but if you have been tortured and sexually abused, are you all that concerned about the verbal abuse? Like, would you even bother mentioning that? Or if you're lying about it, would you try and mention as many things as possible to try and obfuscate? It's just an observation, but when he reported the medical neglect and abuse by filing grievances with the facility and oversight bodies, oh, so this has been investigated by oversight bodies. Experienced retaliation, threats, and further harassment from ICE and facility staff, including the medical providers. Oh, so now the hospital's in on this too, as we'll find out later. Keep in mind, the hospital is not, this is not medical staff at the facility. This is a separate hospital that he is taken to multiple times because of a condition that he has. We'll get to that. So we're supposed to believe it's not just the ICE facility that's in on sexually abusing him and medically abusing him amounting to torture. It is also this separate hospital. Just that in and of itself would be extraordinary. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's certainly possible, but it's incredibly extraordinary. How many doctors do you know that would just look the other way on somebody being sexually abused by a guard? See? It's the only face. Anyway, as set forth more fully below, Mr. Cortez has been subjected to sexual and extreme medical abuse, and his detention has caused him to attempt to take his own life. On February 6, 2023, while seeking medical treatment for his deteriorating seizure condition, Mr. Cortez was sexually assaulted by medical personnel. On February 7, 2023, Mr. Cortez attempted to commit suicide. The suicide attempt was immediately precipitated by the sexual assault. Mr. Cortez endured on February 6, 2023. Hold on one second. Okay, so he claims that he was sexually assaulted on February 6th while seeking medical treatment, attempted to take his life on February 7th because of what took place the day before on February 6th. On March 1st, keep these things in mind because it comes into the contradictions later. On March 1st, 2023, medical personnel and GEO Group officials subjected Mr. Cortez to medical acts which may constitute medical abuse amounting to torture. Drilling a hole into his knee bone and injecting medication directly into his bone without consent, pain medication, or anesthesia. This procedure caused him excruciating pain, lasting physical injury, and severe psychological distress, including suicidal ideation. Mr. Cortez was repeatedly threatened by GEO officials and ICE officials that if he continues to submit complaints or otherwise fails to comply with their orders, this procedure will be repeated. This constitutes a direct threat that amounts to psychological torture. Mr. Cortez reports ongoing PTSD and severe anxiety as a result of both the sexual assault and the use of torture. These are lofty accusations that they're just throwing around. Think about that alleged torture for a second. They drilled into his knee. Into his knee bone and injected medication directly into the bone. Without consent, pain medication, or anesthesia. Now, first of all, there are many procedures that are extremely painful that cannot be done with pain medication or anesthesia, including spinal taps, including donating spinal fluid. I know because I was this close to having to do it for my cousin who had leukemia and needed bone marrow transplant. And the only way to get the bone marrow is with a big-ass needle in between your spine, and you cannot have pain medication or anesthesia. And thank God I didn't have to go through with it. I would have. But just thinking about it. So just let's keep in mind that there are extremely painful procedures that you just can't do those things. Also, it seems oddly specific for torture. You drilled into his knee bone and inserted a medication. Not a poison, a medication. That should immediately raise red flags, right? Well, we're going to find out a little later what the truth is. Whenever I close my eyes, this is a quote from Cortez himself, I relive the incidents, both the sexual touching and the drilling into my bone. It has become a trauma for me. Every time an official approaches me now, I feel this drop in my stomach and my mind empties. I panic. I think back to what they did to me. I'm afraid to go back to the hospital. I don't want to go back to that torture chamber. During his time detained at CLIP, Mr. Cortez has undertaken every possible recourse to request help. He has filed multiple internal grievances with the Office of Immigration Detention Ombudsman, ICE, and GEO Group. So he filed claims with his torturers, allegedly, and he thought that was going to get him somewhere. Seems silly. That's not, I'm not saying that that's a contradiction. It just seems silly. Just one more thing. He has also undertaken multiple hunger strikes to protest his rights violations. We'll find out more about those in a minute. Including a hunger strike in which he was joined by 300 other individuals who were protesting ongoing systematic issues with their conditions of confinement and rights violations. In their arbitrary denial of liberty. They cited that to spurred by slow deportation wait times, Louisiana ICE detainees attempted a hunger strike. Spurred by slow deportation wait times. That's why the other 300 people were participating in a hunger strike. Not because of torture or sexual abuse, because it was taking longer to be deported than expected. You see the difference? Hopefully. On February 24th, 2023, the RFK Human Rights notified Field Office Director Harper of the life-threatening medical neglect, including denial of Mr. Cortez's seizure medication. Although Director Harper initially intervened and restored Mr. Cortez access to his medication, appropriate oversight remains lacking. Oh, so the director's already intervened on this man's behalf. So there is some sort of awareness of the situation going on. Since Director Harper's intervention, he continues to experience medical neglect, including denial of access to neurologist, verbal and medical abuse, but not denial of his medication. Threats and retaliation. Mr. Cortez de Laval has continued to suffer from nearly daily seizures and has been hospitalized over 5 additional times. That's unfortunate, but also a pre-existing condition as we'll find out later, that has nothing to do with his detention necessarily. Could it be exacerbated by it? Sure. Also, not something that we can necessarily help. Anyway. It is clear that additional oversight is needed to ensure that Mr. Cortez's rights do not continue to be violated and prevent further progression of his life-threatening medical condition. Oh, so we're not looking for an investigation or prosecution of his sexual abuser and torturers. We're just looking for somebody to provide a little oversight. That's all. See how the seriousness just doesn't seem to connect here? As detailed in the complaint, past CRCL investigations found improper medical responses have contributed to the death of individuals in ICE custody. Contributed to. Not cause of. Worth noting. At Central Louisiana Processing Center, we asked the new field office director, Harper, to immediately use her oversight authority to prevent another death from taking place. Oh, so these claims also are pre-Trump administration. Because remember how they're being framed in the original story that we're talking about here. That this is the Trump administration's evilness. Continuing. I'm not going to keep reading that. Let's get into the detailed timeline here. Because that's where we start to get more information. December 13th, 2022, Mr. Cortez is transferred from criminal custody to ICE custody and is detained at the Central Louisiana ICE Processing Center, CLIP, in Gina, Louisiana. Prior to his detention beginning in 2019, Mr. Cortez suffered from a seizure condition in which he had been admitted to the ER multiple times, with seizures occurring every few months. A prior EEG had detected seizure activity and took medication under the care of a neurologist who was in the process of determining a full diagnosis and medical treatment plan. Upon being transferred into ICE custody, Mr. Cortez lost access to his seizure medication, Keppra and Dapacote, for over 48 hours. I'm guessing that's his seizure medication? The names of the medication? So this seizure condition predates his detention by 3 years. December 25, 2022. Mr. Cortez begins having seizures in ICE custody. So this would be the first time he has a seizure in ICE custody, apparently. Let's see. December to January 2023. Mr. Cortez filed multiple grievances with ICE, GEO Group, and OIDO related to denial of access to seizure medication and other condition violations. So, starting his first month there, he starts filing multiple grievances. Keep that in mind. Let's see. January 19th, 2023. He's been in custody for just over 1 month. Cortez called for the Freedom of Immigrants Detention Hotline and reported medical neglect, including denial of access to a neurologist. Again, it seems pretty ballsy to be arrested for breaking into a country be fighting your deportation, because the only reason he'd still be being held is if he's fighting deportation. Be fighting your deportation and then demand that you get to see a specialist on the taxpayer dime. Let's keep in mind that if he wasn't fighting his deportation, he could have gone to a neurologist on his own time at any point, because he would have been deported nearly immediately. Also, this is under the Biden administration. We're still in 2023. He reported not being provided seizure medication with the nurse's stated reason, lack of ID. However, he noted the staff know that his ID was lost when he was admitted to the hospital for seizures. Okay. February 3rd, 2023, Allen spoke with Mr. Cortez about the grievances he had submitted. The ICE officer threatened Mr. Cortez and repeatedly told him, quote, "You could get deported." Mr. Cortez was then placed in solitary confinement under punitive conditions without access to phone calls. So, he was allegedly told this because he had filed the grievances. Notice they didn't say how many grievances he filed. Keep in mind, he's only been in custody just under 2 months now. He immediately started having problems, apparently. So they're just picking on him. Mr. Cortez, February 3rd, 2023, had approximately 5 seizures. So he went from having seizures every few months. He had 1 in ICE custody a month before this. A month and a half before this. What was the first seizure? December 25th, 2025. Now on February 3rd, a month later, he had 5 seizures while in solitary confinement and was taken by ambulance to Rapids Regional Medical Center in Alexandria, Louisiana for emergency treatment. So again, a separate hospital, not the ICE facility medical center, a separate hospital. On his way to the hospital, Mr. Cortez had 3 GEO Group officers mocking his seizures, allegedly. One officer allegedly said, "Hey, guess which ones are fake?" A nurse at the facility joked, "Oh, I guess he's just a regular now." Okay. I don't buy that the officer said, "Guess which ones are fake," because even if an officer didn't believe him, he's not dumb enough to say it in front of a bunch of people that could be deposed, generally speaking. As far as the nurse saying, "Oh, I guess he's a regular now," that's not an insult. It's just a comment people say when you show up somewhere a bunch of times, like a hospital. "Oh, I guess you're a regular now, huh?" 2 GEO Group officers handcuff and chain Mr. Cortez to the hospital bed by his wrists and ankles for a full 24 hours a day. Yeah, you were under arrest. That's how it works. The officers used short metal handcuffs instead of longer medical restraints available at the hospital. For 5 consecutive days, he remained chained. Okay, keep in mind those medical restraints don't lock. They're not handcuffs. And they can be undone by the person. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of where I'm at here. For 5 consecutive days, he remained chained to the bed and was not permitted to walk, move, stretch, use the bathroom, or shower during this time. Really? We believe that while he's at the hospital under a doctor's care, they never once let him out of bed. Maybe that was because of his condition. There's a lot of people not allowed out of bed at a hospital because of their condition or their treatment for their condition. Just possibility. Mr. Cortez was forced to urinate and defecate on himself while strapped to the hospital bed and was denied access to a shower for 5 days. He also experienced significant difficulty eating and drinking due to his restraints. He was hospitalized for 5 consecutive days from February 3rd to February 8th. Okay, hospitals have bedpans, right? They have catheters. They have ways to deal with people who can't get up and go to the bathroom. So even if the officers did keep him chained to the bed for 5 days, because it was just easier than, letting him up to go to the bathroom and back, and said, give him a catheter or whatever, we're supposed to believe that the medical staff just ignored that completely and just let him urinate and defecate on himself. I don't buy it. I simply don't buy it. Again, you're now talking about collusion between an entirely separate facility and the ICE facility. ICE, who are already not the biggest fans of most people, generally speaking. Or most people are not generally the biggest fans of ICE people, generally speaking. February 6, 2023. This is the date that Mr. Cortez reported being sexually assaulted. While restrained, he asked the GO group officials and hospital medical staff if he could use the bathroom. A GO group officer, okay, so this would be 3 days in. So he waits 3 days to ask to go to the bathroom, or he continues to ask knowing they're not allowing him to. Which is it? A GO group officer replied, "No, captain's orders." After Mr. Cortez was forced to urinate and defecate on himself, a hospital technician approached him and said, "We have to clean you up grandma style." As they would if he urinated and defecated on himself. Almost like maybe he was doing it out of protest because he wasn't getting what he wanted, leaving them no choice but to clean it up. Mr. Cortez asked the hospital technician if he could clean himself. The technician refused and pulled down Mr. Cortez's pants without his consent. The technician then groped Mr. Cortez and used his fingers and hands to touch Mr. Cortez's genitals. The technician also inserted a finger somewhere. Okay, keep in mind the complaint would be if this person didn't clean him up, the complaint would be they left me in my, my own urine and fecal matter. So the only other option is to clean it up. This was an extremely traumatic experience for Mr. Cortez, who expressed enduring and vivid PTSD episode as a result of the technician's conduct. As a result of this sexual assault, Mr. Cortez began to experience intense anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. Really? An adult man began to experience PTSD, depression, anxiety, intense anxiety, and suicidal ideation because somebody gave him a sponge bath? Of course he would be uncomfortable. Of course he wouldn't like it. But this isn't forcible rape in a back alley by a crackhead. This is a medical professional cleaning up because he defecated all over himself. In what I find very hard to believe, doctor's orders. Nobody in that facility was like, hey, you guys are just like gonna leave him chained to the bed to defecate on himself? Nobody? None of his nurses or doctors? I don't buy it. But let's keep going and find out more. February 7th. In a post-seizure state, Mr. Cortez attempted suicide by wrapping a nearby IV cord around his neck and repeatedly slammed his head into the side rails of the hospital bed. Not sure that would accomplish anything, but February 8th. Mr. Cortez was discharged from the hospital and returned to CLIP. Even though he just tried to commit suicide the day before? So no one's going to point out that that would be a violation of the law? He would be held for a 72-hour cycle. No? Not going to mention that part? Okay. During processing, 2 Geo Group sergeants, including Sergeant Parrott, ordered him to strip naked. The officers had a video camera and instructed Mr. Cortez to state his name and who he is for the camera. Mr. Cortez refused, and the officers eventually allowed him to leave the processing room and enter the dormitory. So he didn't do that. Also on February 8th, Mr. Cortez was examined by a neurologist at the Rapids Regional Medical Center in Alexandria. Oh, so he wanted to go back to the place that he was raped at. The neurologist at that facility confirmed through an EEG test that seizure activity, which is not the same thing as anyway, has been detected in Mr. Cortez's brain. The neurologist increased Mr. Cortez's dosage. Keep in mind, this is all on his word, right? This is not on medical records, which we'll find out later. This is just according to Cortez himself. He says that the neurologist upped his dosage of the Keppra and Dapacote that he supposedly wasn't being given, prescribed Ativan, a third medication to manage seizures, and referred Mr. Cortez for further diagnostic testing and treatment with a neurologist. February 9th, the next day, Mr. Cortez reported the February 6th sexual abuse to Commander Krug, a medical contractor with the facility, and Melissa McLean, a licensed social worker. Neither Commander Krug nor Miss McLean took any steps to address the sexual abuse. So now 2 more people are in on this conspiracy. One who is a commander and a licensed social worker, whose job it literally is to take claims like this seriously. I wonder why that might be. He began his hunger strike on February 9th to protest his medical neglect and mistreatment. He continued that protest for a whopping 5 days. It was that important to him. 5 whole days. February 18th, Mr. Cortez resumed his hunger strike. He participated in this hunger strike until February 24th. 6 days. He made it 6 days this time, after a 4-day break. Come on. February 21st, an attorney call between Mr. Cortez and his legal representative from RFK Human Rights was erroneously cut short after 20 minutes. Is that according to the attorney or Mr. Cortez? And why was it erroneously cut short? Was it maybe because that was all the time he had on his phone? Who knows? Mr. Cortez was taken to an appointment with an external neurologist who was unable to reach a definitive diagnosis regarding his daily seizures and noted that additional diagnostic testing may be required. So a second opinion now doesn't confirm that he has a seizure disorder. February 24th. At approximately 8 a.m., Mr. Cortez received his seizure medication mixed with a crushed blue anxiety pill, which he believed to be for his anxiety. Mr. Cortez previously stopped taking this anxiety medication because it caused severe negative side effects, including increased suicidal ideation. He asked the facility nurse what was the medication, to which she replied, "None of your business." Yeah, I'm sure. Mr. Cortez communicated that he did not want to take any anxiety medication. If it was crushed, how did he know what it was? Any anxiety medication, but wanted to take his seizure medication. The nurse refused and entered on order that Mr. Cortez had refused medication, denying him access to the seizure medication. Mr. Cortez then spoke with an ICE officer upon information and belief, Officer Miller, who dismissed his concerns and refused to provide Mr. Cortez with his seizure medication. Yeah, he's not allowed to, first of all. At least I highly doubt he is. A random guard cannot provide the medicine for you. A doctor or nurse has to do that. February 25th. Mr. Cortez was approached by Geo Group Sergeant who said, quote, "You ain't got any complaints? I hear you like to complain a lot. Keep your mouth shut and stop complaining." Okay. February 27th. According to calls received on Freedom of Immigrants National Immigration Hotline and reports made to other human rights organizations, hundreds of other detained initiated a facility-wide hunger strike on this day to protest conditions of confinement and arbitrary denial of release. By the hunger strike's end on February 25th, it said it started on February 27th, but now ends on February 25th. The majority of individuals in approximately 10 of the detention center's 14 units were participating. Huh. Weird. Anyway. March 1st, Mr. Cortez was taken to LaSalle General Hospital in Jenna, Louisiana to receive emergency care after having another series of severe seizures in ICE custody. Medical personnel at LaSalle General Hospital injected a needle into the right side of his tibia, shin bone just below the knee, and inserted an IV port into the bone marrow of his leg using a drill. 2 GEO officers held Mr. Cortez down while LaSalle General Hospital. So now a third hospital is in on this abuse and torture, by the way. This is a third hospital now that's in on it, and technically a fourth if you include the one he reported it to in the other case. And so, held him down. 2 G officers held him down. They used this port to administer Ativan, a medication used to treat seizures. So they did all this. They drilled a hole into his knee, inserted an IV to give him the Ativan he was taking orally. And again, for fun or... The pain was excruciating, and Mr. Cortez reports screaming and begging the staff to stop before losing consciousness due to the pain. The procedure was performed without consent. The medical staff did not provide Mr. Cortez with any pain management, pain medication, or anesthesia. Mr. Cortez reports that it was the most intense pain I have ever experienced in my life. When Mr. Cortez regained consciousness, medical personnel said to him, "I bet you won't have a seizure again." Maybe that was just wishful thinking. March 2nd, Mr. Cortez reported experiencing continued severe pain radiating down his leg. He was unable to walk, and his leg became visibly swollen and bruised. A doctor at LaSalle General Hospital ordered an x-ray, but Mr. Cortez was never taken to receive the scan. Mr. Cortez experienced severe migraines and had a fever immediately following this incident. So, of course, just everything, every person that this guy has dealt with has been an absolute monster. At 3 different hospitals, a 4th medical professional and service worker, 4th and 5th, I guess, refused to listen to his complaint of sexual abuse and torture. Everyone's just a monster. I'm not going to keep going because it's just more of the same all through March. Here's what I do want to read. Analysis of medical condition. Declaration regarding the medical care of Mr. Cortez, reviewed by Dr. William Weber. I'm not going to read through all his certifications, but he says, I'm a board-certified emergency physician on facility at Harvard Medical School and Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. I completed my medical education, yada, yada, yada. I have treated hundreds of patients with epilepsy during my time, including those having active seizures. I have prepared my review of the medical care on behalf of the Freedom for Immigrants staff with the client's permission. I do not have authority over the client's direct medical treatment or diagnosis. I have received no remuneration for my time reviewing this case or preparation declaration. I have done so as a volunteer. I spoke directly to Mr. Cortez, but was unable to review his medical records since the detention facility allegedly only recently provided him access to them. I reserve the right to amend my statement if provided with medical records. Based on Mr. Cortez's direct testimony, I will declare the following. Reserving his right to change his mind when he actually sees medical proof. Do you think maybe Mr. Cortez didn't provide medical records because they might not quite line up with his timeline? Just possible. But there's more. Seizures are caused by an electrical short circuit in the brain. Most seizures cause patients to lose consciousness and have shaking of their body. During this time, the patient is not aware of their surroundings and can have involuntary thrashing, tongue biting, or urinary incontinence. After a seizure, patients typically have a period of confusion, a postical phase, that generally lasts between 5 to 30 minutes. This is akin to the brain rebooting after an error. During the postical phase, the patient may act abnormally, and the patient will often have no recollection of what happened. Patients with seizures are typically diagnosed with an EEG that shows abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Patients with seizures are treated with medications that can lower their risk of seizures. However, environmental stressors, such as lack of sleep and stress, can raise the risk that someone has a seizure. Mr. Cortez has been evaluated and treated for a seizure disorder. He reports developing this disorder in 2019 and would have seizure episodes around 5 to 7 times per year. These were sometimes associated with episodes of drinking or substance abuse, which can lower the threshold to have a seizure for those with underlying conditions. During 2019 to 2021, he required evaluation in the ER multiple times for his seizures. He had an EEG during this time that showed seizure activity in his brain and was treated with levotrectamine, something like that, or Crepa, a medication to help reduce the risk of seizures. He has been taking that medication since 2019. Again, this is all based on his word. Since being detained in the ICE facility, Mr. Cortez reports having numerous seizures. He reports that frequency of his seizures intensified from every couple of months at home to having seizures more days than not. When he experiences a seizure, he falls down and has sustained injuries such as bruises, scratches, and head trauma. Each fall increases the risk of very dangerous injury like bleeding inside of the brain. Numerous and prolonged seizures can also permanently damage the brain, and he reports that his thinking has felt more sluggish than usual, with him requiring more time to process what he is going to say. Furthermore, patients who have seizures should not be restrained with hard objects such as handcuffs, as they have involuntary seizure movements. The jerking against a hard restraint can cause injury and can also hinder them being placed in a recovery position on their side. Mr. Cortez reports numerous bruises on his wrist from when he was restrained with handcuffs during seizures. Mr. Cortez's seizures have led to significant burden on the healthcare system. That's a broad statement to make. Seizures are a medical emergency, and he reports the medical staff and paramedics are forced to respond to his seizures multiple times per week, which hampers them from caring for other patients. In addition, he has required numerous ambulances and ER visits for his seizures, which detain correctional staff for prolonged periods of time at the hospital and lead to significant expense for ICE. Mr. Cortez reports that more recent EEG conducted after arriving at the ICE facility confirmed seizure-like activity in his brain. He was seen by a neurologist who increased the dose of his Crepa and started him on a second medication called phenylatin to help him control his seizures. Despite this, he continues to have very frequent seizures. Mr. Cortez reports issues with significant stress, poor sleep at the ICE facility. Chronic stress and disturbed sleep can increase the risk of seizures and are unlikely to improve at the facility. Medical staff have not provided compassionate care for Mr. Cortez's seizure disorder. Again, according to Mr. Cortez, nothing else. He reports that they have grown tired of the burden that his seizures place on the medical system, often dismissing his seizures as fake. After an intraosseous line for delivering emergency medications was drilled into his bone at the hospital and caused significant pain, staff have reportedly threatened that they will do it again if he continues to have seizures. The behavior, he reports, by medical staff is very concerning and unprofessional and mischaracterizes his seizures as voluntary. Or maybe... So, what we just heard from the doctor here was an entirely different classification of what happened. And the procedure was given because of his seizures, not random torture. And maybe, rather than threatening him, the staff said, just know, if the seizures continue, they're going to have to do this again. Not as a threat, just as information. I'd be interested to know if it stopped the seizures. Matter of fact, if we go back and look through March here, let me see real quick. So far, I'm up to March 12th. So the next seizure he had was on March 12th, and that was supposedly when he was threatened that they would drill a hole in his knee again if he didn't cooperate. He then had another seizure the next day, but still did not have another hole drilled in his leg. He then canceled another hunger strike for fear it would increase his seizure activity, and then started another one on the 17th. He canceled on the 14th, started another one on the 17th, which he again participated in for 5 days. It's almost like he can only go 5 days.
What's going on, dude?
Good Lord, what are you doing on? We're live, just FYI.
What are you doing? I know, I saw on X. I was like, posted and crap.
You scared the hell out of me.
The internet's talking back.
I wasn't expecting anybody to be on. I forget, it's probably, morning time for you, huh?
Yeah, I gotta get up early and go work. I gotta be somewhere by... Well, I gotta leave here by 8, but I could hang out for a minute.
I haven't gone to bed yet.
What are you talking about, man?
I was just about to, though. So in prep I was doing for tomorrow's show, I came across this story. It's an opinion piece from The Hill, but it was an opinion piece that cited 22 different articles as evidence of their claims about how terrible ICE is.
Yeah.
And so I started looking through it, and I started going through, each of those claims, and every single one was bullshit. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I decided I was just gonna go through this article as a standalone thing, because obviously it's taken a long
How
time.
long you been going on for?
Oh fuck, I don't know. Let me see. 2 hours 51 minutes.
Holy
long
shit!
Time. Longer than I thought. Although I had to hop up for a minute because my son woke up. He's sick, and so I had to.
Oh wow.
Hop off for a minute, but.
Oh yeah. So what'd you get
Which
covered?
I am too, but what did I? So right now we were going through this complaint. This is the first complaint out of all of the reports that actually somebody put their name to.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy alleged that he's being detained at an ICE facility in Louisiana. And he alleged sexual abuse and medical torture, among other things. Because that wasn't enough. There was also verbal abuse and stuff too, obviously. And so as we're going through these claims, it literally goes day by day from like December 13th, 2022 to March 29th, 2023. So keep in mind, this is all pre-Trump administration anyway, which of course this was framed as, Trump's terrible ICE Gestapo. But the medical torture was a hole that they drilled in his knee because he has seizures, and it's an emergency procedure that they had to do. But he claimed that they threatened to do it again if his seizures didn't stop. Or like maybe it was just follow-up treatment. Anyway, as we've gone through it, there's been multiple contradictions of his statements here. And it's become very clear that he literally started complaining after being in the facility for like 2 days. And it just keeps compiling from there. And he never had another hole drilled in his knee. So, and it was apparently a legitimate procedure. The sexual abuse was somebody cleaning him up because he defecated on himself, which he claims was involuntary, but it just, none of it adds up. It's all kind of nonsense. And then on top of all those claims, there's all these weird petty claims in between that you would think wouldn't matter at all when you're alleging torture.
Right. So what's the name of the case though? The person?
His name is Mr. Cortez Delaval. Delavalle. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different pro-immigrant NGOs that signed on to this letter.
Fibra de la Balle, CHV?
So it's Cortez de D-E.
Oh.
La
D-E.
D-E space L-A space Valle, V-A-L-L-E.
Okay, there's like another thing trending, which is Fibra de la Balle, and I was like, that's so similar. What the hell?
Daniel Alfredo is his first two names. So it's Daniel Alfredo Cortez de la Valle. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and every story that we've looked into is just like this, where it's just nonsense and random claims by people who have incentive to lie with no corroborating evidence, no photos, no nothing.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking was funny was the amount of these guys that just pop about. It just makes like the Epstein file thing. These people are pointing to these stories that they just don't make any sense on the face of it. I mean, I get that victims of crimes can have things going on, right? They can have other things going on than just being a victim. But You know, I mean, some of these stories are just incoherent. You know?
Yeah. In fact, I brought up the Epstein thing earlier with the same thing because
Yeah.
of the last documents that released, the vast majority of those documents were from an anonymous tip line.
hmm
Yet, you know, you have all these people that are purporting these as if they are like witness statements that were certified or something. Anybody could call and say anything. They didn't sign their name to it. They don't have to provide any proof. And the government has to write it down. That doesn't make it legit. And
I know
nobody...
even some of the cases, like you hear the FBI guy, like, he's like, and then also to report the witness came back in again today and added that they cut his feet with a scimitar ritually, but left no scarring to show us. And then, like, later on, again, the witness came in, said that they were having intercourse with a bunch of white women, bunch of big dick black men just banging white women on a boat till the woman bled. I just thought I'd add that into the file. And, you know, just like, it's just so ridiculous, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's... Nobody wants to defend an accused pedo. Nobody wants to defend the accused pedo's friends. I don't want to defend them. But you gotta give me proof, not just random accusations from people that wouldn't even put their name down.
I heard a CIA guy talking. He said in the CIA, whenever they see like a politician got busted for like something kiddie or pedo stuff, they always just laugh. They're like, "Oh, who'd he piss off?" You know,
that's the thing.
Like, that's because they don't find it serious at all.
It's one of the easiest things to smear somebody with, both without evidence and with evidence, because all you got to do is send a bunch of CP to somebody's email. They don't even know it's on their computer, and then you have SWAT kick in their door, and oh, look what we found on their computer, even though it's in an email they never opened. They had no idea it was even there. But who's going to listen to those details?
It's just easy to plant, you know.
Just break in and play
about a lot of those cases, it's just the accusation. All of that shit gets dropped, but just having that accusation as a politician, that's the one thing you can't come back from. I mean, Bill Clinton came back from murder, you know, allegedly. Ted Kennedy came back from being in the car with the woman who drowned. You know, I mean, like, you could be an alcoholic, a drug addict. There was a famous mayor in DC who was a notorious crack addict. You know, you can come back from all of that, but the one thing that we as a society, and rightly so, I mean, rightly so, you know,
we just need to be better about who we believe it. There needs to be evidence before we just assume it to be true. This is not the 90s or the 80s anymore. And even then, it was still fairly easy to plant something, but it's even easier today.
Yeah. It's just insane to me that that they can make that crap up, and it just takes that accusation, you know?
Yeah.
And someone's done. Their career's over.
Yep.
It's
really
important.
Gets rid of the people that are in the way, huh?
You remember Matt Gaetz?
Mm-hmm.
He got accused of sleeping with a 17-year-old prostitute or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Or not even sleeping with her, just soliciting her. She was at a party. He was at, I don't remember the circumstance.
He was texting with a girl that was like 17, and it was, you know, sexually suggestive, but he wasn't sending dick pics or anything.
Right. But they
if I remember
ended
correctly.
his career.
Yeah.
Like, they just ended him because he was like, remember how, like, he was the guy that stood up to McCarthy, him and the other chick, Lorena or something, Babbitt. And then she got caught jerking off her boyfriend in a movie theater. That was an unforced error. But
that wasn't Babbitt,
the
by the way. That's Babbitt's, Ashley Babbitt's the woman who died on January 6th.
Yeah.
No. That's the woman that died on January 6th. It was
Oh, right. No, it was.
I forget the name of the. Everyone knows who we're talking about, but
Yeah, she's and yeah, she's doing that in the movie theater, and then what was the other one? It was so there was Matt Gates.
there was the one with
her,
the girl who's
but they were
like
like rocket
ex-boyfriend or
stars.
whatever.
Yeah, but they were taken off. Like they
Boebert.
stood up to McCarthy. They
was
didn't
Lauren
want to become
Boebert.
the Senate seat, and then freaking they're gone now. Like every one of them's like politically insignificant. I would not be surprised McCarthy, the old dog who's been trying to be Speaker of the House forever, and they stop him and they make the big show and embarrass him. Don't let him become the Speaker. Like, I wonder if he pulled out some payback. You know what I mean?
Right.
The guy that's been there, the dinosaur that's been there forever, that's got all the connections, who comes from California, where we just play dirty out there. That's the only way we know how to play.
It makes it
Whenever
easier. It makes it easier to understand how what's his name, the current speaker, Mike Johnson, might just suddenly do a 180 on the SAVE Act, even though 90% of America is for it.
Well, yeah, him being wishy-washy on that is obnoxious, dude. Like, what is going on?
He was all
with that
for
shit?
it like a week ago. Like a week ago, he made a strong statement about how they're going to pass it, and then all of a sudden it's, well, we don't want to tie up the Senate for the next
getting cold feet.
several months. Like, what do you have to do except this? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it in that light, it's like, well, protect his career, maybe. But honestly, I'm at the point where I don't give a damn about your career. If they're going to tank your career over it, then that's what it costs. Like,
yeah,
it's that, or just hand the country over now, because all you're doing is prolonging it.
Well, yeah, I get that, but it's like so many things we need to do, and they're hunkered down. They're going to fight Trump on they're going to fight the conservative movement on every inch of ground, because they fought so hard to destroy this country that to try and fight back against it, I mean, they're already rallied. I mean, they have literal protest groups that hang out like a fire department, like a volunteer fire squad. They hang out and then they get something to protest, and they're everyone rally, and they got their little. They go down the pole, They slide down the stripper pole. They get handed their sign.
Yeah.
They get their COVID mask on and they get out on that street. And they're doing the service, they're doing the Lord's work.
I think we got our I think we got our thumbnail photo for tomorrow's show.
Oh yeah. I guess we're testing out the morning version to see if we get anybody.
I'm surprised. I started it a little after midnight my time. It's now 3:41. I was surprised how many people actually showed up. I mean, obviously not our normal numbers by any means, but more than two, which is what I was expecting.
Now on the East Coast, so we might catch some people.
It's picking up a little bit, tiny bit. By the way, shout out to Alabama John. I see he left a comment. I didn't see it. Sorry. If you're still listening.
You never see the comment. You're always like, comment.
Well, I know, because it doesn't tell me when it came in. So I don't know if it was 2 minutes ago or 2 hours ago. And especially when I'm doing this by myself, I never have time to look at the stream. I'm, busy.
Yeah, we do need to designate. That's why every single podcast has a producer guy who can do that.
I need a third screen so that I can keep it over here and see it.
Oh, the problems, man. We're dealing with America's biggest problems: a third camera. I gotta get some more coffee, but I'm plugged in.
Trying to get Grok coming up with that that
Sun's just coming
image.
up.
I know I'm trying to decide. I need to go to bed, but I kind of want to open this next Red Bull. In which
Who
case, I
needs
won't go to bed.
bed? Oh.
Says the guy that just woke up.
Yeah, there's the sun coming up.
Boy, I did not feel nearly this bad.
Emergency! To the next
Jesus.
protest! Let's go!
What's that?
That was not what we were looking for. I was trying to make that thumbnail. Here, I'm going to put it up on the screen. I didn't realize it was going to have volume, though.
Popping in.
I'm going to have to move this. Hold on, I got to move it over. Because I got to move it when I'm alone. There we go. There we go. Okay. It was close. Although they just like do a backflip on the pole and then it disappears.
Emergency! To the next protest! Let's go!
Let's go.
To the streets!
Oh, is it? Did you just make that?
Yeah, the screech is really
Perfect.
annoying though. I'm gonna see if I can get rid of the screech.
Perfect. The guy just
I don't understand. The pole just disappears.
Dude. Oh man, you gotta send that to me so I could share that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, let me clean it up just a little bit. All right.
Oh, that is fun. What happened to my
The smoke
cigarette?
detector beep.
All right.
Let's see. That might have been too much instruction. We'll see what happens here.
Like waking up before my alarm makes me feel like an American.
Feel like an adult.
American.
That's the funny thing. I'll set an alarm, and within, I don't know, 4 or 5 days, I'll inevitably wake up 5 minutes before it every time. But if I try and get that 5 minutes extra of sleep, I'll sleep right through it. All right, let's see what this one is.
Behind you. Protest at the plaza. Let's go.
A protest? On our way.
Right behind you.
What the hell?
Protest at the...
Oh, that one's radically
protest?
different. Let's get some protest signs in their hands. Just like that, but regular clothes, not fire suits, purple hair, nose ring, etc.
No, we know this type. They usually come from Washington.
Yes, they do. There are 6
Occasionally,
in my vicinity right now.
there's probably people thinking about what to protest next or what they can make into a protest. Some
Probably
guys
so.
out there still trying to rehash George Floyd. Like, let's get that. You remember the George Floyd days? We're all out there protesting. Oh, those were good days. We need another George Floyd. I hate to say it, everybody.
What do
I
we
hate to
want?
say it.
Peace. When do we want it? Now.
come
what do we
on.
want? Peace. Do we want it? Now.
She's holding the
What do we
sign.
want? Peace.
Her
When do
hands
we
never
want
come
it?
off
Now.
the sign,
What do
but
we
she's got her
want?
hand in the
Peace. We
air,
want it
too.
now.
It is.
What do we want?
It's shit.
It completely lost the... Oh, man. That's as good as we're going to get for the moment. I'll work on it some more tomorrow,
Yeah.
but I don't have the creative mind for this at the moment.
Really?
Nope, that ends at about 1:30 or so. I seem to be the most creative between like 10 and 1:30.
Yes, on our way.
What,
Right behind
at
you.
night?
I like that one. How they just all come out of the poll the same.
Yeah. Well, let's scroll through the morning X and see what the leftists are up to.
Do we really want to know? Because I really
Well,
don't
I
need to
titled my
know.
thing, "The Left Deserves to Be Made Fun of."
They deserve to be made fun of, but at the risk of your own mental health. We
Well, it's
broke
good
the
to see what
record.
the enemy's up to, you know.
On SB 6346, establishing an income tax, we has, as of the timing of this post, broke the record for most conservative sign-ons of any bill the legislator has considered. Oh, cool.
Hey, there you go. So that's what the left is doing, huh?
I hope that's Washington.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the left is they're always on, dude. You can always count on them to be like angry and just, you know, like it's like automatic. If you ever need like some energy, I wish we had, you know, conservative values and leftist energy. We could merge those. You know, we'd get everything done in this country. It's like we could combine the two dreams, you know?
Yeah.
like value.
Well, actually, you know what? After this
unfettered energy.
After this video I'm about to play, I'll play a video for you because I actually have that in a video for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I played it at the beginning.
Okay.
I played it at the beginning,
That's
but
quite a promise.
that was hours ago now, so I'll play it again.
Yeah.
So this is a state legislator apparently alleged that these state troopers ran over some leftist protesters, so they released the dash cam footage.
Yeah,
I'm sure we know where this is going. This is what the leftists are up to this morning, though. You wanted to know.
Yeah, there you go. Dude, do those people... What is freaking Kevin Smith doing here? He finished shooting his last crappy movie, and now he's protesting ICE? What is going on?
Hey, what is this person doing?
Oh, he's saving the day.
I will
like
say
how they got the best stuff. Yeah,
it's a good thing
Kevin Smith's hanging out.
It's a good thing
Where is
this
this?
day didn't plant their feet, because that probably would have destroyed that cop car.
Oh, the car going in front.
Yeah, and the person gets out with their hands up. That's what I was wondering. Like,
How much of this do we think, like when you see a leftist rush a cop with a gun, knowing what's possibly could happen, how much do we think is suicide by cop? Like what percentage of them do you think?
if they're rushing a cop with a gun in their hand,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you pretty much have to be asking for death if you're doing that. If you're shooting at the
I mean,
cop,
is their
you might be
life
trying to
that
get
bad?
away.
Or they do like the guy that set himself on fire for Gaza, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's just depressing because it showed all these people going, yeah, I mean, that's really the best you can hope for a white person is they realize these were legitimate videos people were putting out on like TikTok and I think some of them got through on X, but yeah, that's the best you can hope for from a white person is that they completely to separate themselves from their whiteness, they have to sacrifice
They
themselves.
turn themselves black. Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't even go in there, but yeah, that's a good, they, char their skin.
The way you said it
And
was
the guy,
a little
what's also funny was later you found out the guy wasn't even white. He was like Latino, right? But
yeah, believe it or not, he was mentally ill.
But yeah, I actually saw a video on TikTok the other day where it showed a woman talking about how whiteness can infect other ethnicities, and how you have to be on the watch for it. Like if you're just a little bit too timely, if you care too much about your job, if you're extremely focused on I'm not even, this is legit. If you care too much about your job, you're too timely, which means you're on time, I think is what she meant. You care too much about your job. you feel a social responsibility, which like she gives examples like picking up trash. That's whiteness infecting you.
Oh.
And it's almost like you go, so whiteness is the bad thing, right? But anything that helps a society is the bad thing. And these people are freaking agitators. They're trying to destroy
I'm glad
society.
you're starting to understand. Yes, that is exactly it.
Right. Yeah, but like the only people I think that aren't just having fun with it are the mentally ill. You know, the ones that are really buying into it.
Oh yeah. So this is from Minnesota, and this is your right wing guy with his left wing energy. This is a big sign that leftists put outside of the Minnesota State House that says "Prosecute ICE," and it's made of ice.
Pro-ICE, baby! America first, America only! We'll see you here February 7th, Saturday, 12 noon, outside the Minnesota State Capitol.
So that's some guy. Yeah, that's some guy named
Charlie something or another.
No, Jake Lang. Not familiar. But yeah, so he did that. He claims he's been charged with a felony now.
For stomping on the ice sculpture?
$6,000 ice sculpture, apparently. I'm not 100% sure the video's real.
If he's like, where's the evidence? Like, show me the... Yeah, no, that was an AI video. Show me where
it almost
the
looks
sculpture
like
is.
one. I mean, it might work because it almost looks like one. But I'll tell you what my take was. It was pretty simple. I'm in favor of him doing it. I'm not upset that he's been charged with destroying somebody's property. But there is kind of a weird middle ground because it is technically public property and they probably didn't have a permit to put the sign up in the first place. So then, like, how does that work out? I don't know. But you don't have the right to destroy somebody else's stuff. So
they have to go get a permit to put up a sign saying that the government, like, let's say it didn't say prosecute ICE. Let's say we live in a totalitarian
government sucks.
Or we're under authoritarian rule, and then they go get their permit to do it, and they put it up. That's the funniest thing about these assholes, dude. They only do that shit where it's safe, where they know they're not living in authoritarian or totalitarian rule.
Yeah.
You know, where they're not living in a fascist society. And that's why they always go to the safest places to do it. Like they go to Israel to against the regime and show how bad it is. And like the way they use, like, so they pump in that cognitive dissonance between these two ideas with ideas like, I can only get away with this because I'm white. You know? Did you see that video of the woman? She's Palestinian woman raised in America, and she got a protest group together, and like half of them were black, and they went to Gaza to help, you know, rebuild crap and take care of people, whatever they were doing, volunteering. And apparently the Gazans were incredibly racist to the black people, right? And so she has to make a video saying, you need some cultural understanding. Yeah. And then meanwhile, she has a BLM sign in the back, you know, of her little setup, you know, people do with their podcast crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was gold, you know.
So far, the leftists are not on it this morning.
What do we got? White people, you can't blame... Hang on, go back. White people. You can't blame me for what my ancestors did. Also, white people. Their parents brought them here illegally, so those children deserve to be locked up. White people aren't even saying that.
No, nobody said the children deserve to be locked up.
We're saying that, yeah, we're saying...
At most, we're saying deport them.
Yeah, we're saying you can't have anchor babies. That's not what the the amendment was made for. That was never the idea. It was to ensure that slaves that were freed in the South could not be kicked out of the country, and then that they had to be naturalized citizens. It was to protect black people, in fact, is why that law was made. Gosh, these fucking monsters will creep up on anything they can.
What? If Canada, for example, came to the United States and said, we're going to zero tariffs on the United States, all of them off on our end, would you, Mr. President, speaking to our president, go to zero tariffs and then just let Canadian companies and American companies compete on a level playing field? Besson, absolutely not. According to who?
This is interesting now.
Another claim with nobody putting their name to it. Not even somebody reporting it there. I don't know what that's all about. I don't want to. This is apparently an ICE protest downtown Seattle high school edition.
The Ghana flag?
Oh, look, Mexican flags. That's a Bob Marley flag.
This reminds me of the peaceful protests in Rome in 476 AD.
Okay, so I've noticed they've been doing this a lot lately. You'll notice right here, this looks like it could be real, although I'm not sure. I didn't see this on the news tonight. But this looks like it could be real. But then when they zoom up and they go to right there, you'll notice the crowd suddenly changes in scale.
Yeah.
The crowd suddenly changes in scale and is very blurry.
If you didn't have the subtitle there, if you just put like, you know, this city's team just lost a football game, you couldn't tell the difference, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, there's just endless people coming. There's not that many people in Seattle, guys. Nor are there high schools in downtown Seattle either, just to be clear. I mean, yes, there are some high schools in downtown, but not like right there in downtown. They're over here. Iran seizes oil tankers, threatens massacre in Strait of Hormuz hours before U.S. talks. Do they really think this is going to work for them? And whose boats did they seize? Because you know damn well they didn't seize any American boats. They seized 2 foreign oil tankers in the Persian Gulf Thursday, accusing them of smuggling fuel and detaining 15 crew members at high-stakes U.S.-Iran talks in Oman. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard said it intercepted 2 ships near Farsi Island, claiming they were containing about 1 million liters of smuggled fuel. Crew made up foreign nationals. Who? Who's foreign nationals? That's what I want to know. Iranian authorities claim the operation of fuel trafficking did not disclose vessels' nationalities or destinations. Oh, because I heard that they were trying to get a U.S. oil ship the other day, but it didn't work. You're muted, by the way. Yeah. There you go. Like talking
was
to
I
an old
muted the
man.
whole time?
Apparently. I noticed you weren't talking
I was
again,
sitting there
so I
trying
looked
to
up.
talk, and then like you were just talking over me. I was getting like super pissed. No, what's funny to me is all anyone hears and the hashtags read, you know, Iran massacre, massacres in Iran. Those
Oh, I see you commented on this.
by threatening to commit a massacre on oil tankers they seize. Like it's insane to me. I don't know what they're freaking up to right now.
I don't know. And I know they tried to seize the U.S. oil tanker the other day. They failed. Not even because of the U.S. Navy, just because the oil tanker fought him off. So that's awesome.
That's Americans, dude. Even the average American at sea carries 50 DMG with them.
They claim to have seized 2 oil ships, but they didn't say whose ships they were, just that they're foreign oil ships. They're probably their own damn ships. And yeah, like you said, they're threatening to massacre them. These people, we don't even know who they are. They might be enemies of ours for all we know. As some sort of negotiating tactic, like...
There's my comment right there.
Yeah, that's what I said. I see you commented on it. I left it there so people could read it.
Oh, what? Did you read it out loud?
Would you like to?
Yeah, read it out loud for me. I want to hear how you say my words.
Iran is in a position right now to be a phoenix or a dumpster fire. All anyone is talking about at this point is the hashtag Iran massacre.
You have to say hashtag.
Oh, sorry. Seizing oil tankers and threatening to massacre again. There are no more sympathizers. Good riddance, GC. May peace come to the Persian people, with any luck.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I hope they can free themselves from that bullshit.
Okay, do we have to call them highway terrorists?
The highwaymen. What are they freaking doing? Blocking a truck?
He's coming the wrong way up. He's coming up an off ramp.
What the fuck are you doing?
I don't know what he's doing, but I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish either. Like,
well, he's filming it,
why
so
don't
that's
you
important.
just honk at him some more?
Fucking idiot!
Yeah, you gotta film if you want to be cool like that. You gotta film stuff. Always have your camera. Always be filming.
And then he just keeps pulling forward.
ABF, dude. Oh, that got him. He goes, I realized I thought something was up, and then that guy said, "Holy fuck," and it just clicked for me. I was like,
all of a
whoa.
sudden,
Dude, people have meme brain right now. It's so not like one guy when Renee Good was shot, there was a guy go, "You just did a murder, bro," speaking in internet talk, and it's like you're a 30-some-year-old man. You can't even, like, somebody just died, and you're trying to sound upset about it, blaming myself. And all you can do is, you just did a murder, bro. Like, they can only speak in meme at this point. That is their totality of their human connection is fucking memes.
Yep. Did you hear the guy? I wish I had the video right now, but did you hear the guy that was trying to console her wife immediately after she was shot? And he's like,
just imagine hearing that comment in like the 1950s. The guy that was trying to console her wife, like, it's so fucking insane the world we live in, dude.
He's like,
anyway.
It was a black guy, and he's like, you don't like, do you have anyone you can call? Or it like asked a couple general questions like that, and she's like, no, and he's like, oh, okay, and walks away. And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, damn, she got a fat ass.
No, he didn't. Did he really?
Not her, not the wife, but just somebody else walking in front of him. It was fucking hilarious. Inappropriate, but hilarious.
No, that's people like that is like that's who these people are, dude. They don't give a shit.
No.
None of these people actually give a shit, you know? They're like, I'm doing the right. It's the easy, like they think doing the right thing. It's the easiest thing that they're doing. Standing out there screaming at people. It's having a good time. You know? That's what they're doing. That's why no one takes them seriously. no one's like
Personally,
gonna
I don't know
look
that
at
getting
you-
shot is a good time, but that's just me.
Well, no,
Leftists
no,
seem
the
to
people
want to.
like, well, like, that's why most of them don't get shot. Just the mentally ill ones, right? That run in there and try to get shot.
Yeah.
But the ones that like, they're just out there having a good time, and no one's going to consider them no one's going to consider them how they did, like the people in the '60s out there protesting for, to end Jim Crow laws and stuff.
Right.
Like, we look at them, we're like, hey, that's respectable, man. These people deserve a place on our society. They were fighting for human rights. There was real injustice going on, and you're not them. You're not them, and you're never going to be them, because you're never going to put yourself.
No, you're agitators. You're just agitators.
Yeah, you're not fighting for anything real.
Yeah.
Like the vast majority of the country supports deportations. In fact, the only reason that so when they asked CNN, like, how many people still support deportations, it was like 90-something%, right?
Yeah, I had a thing from Pew Research earlier on the show. 95% Republican, 71% Democrat still.
Yeah, but the amalgamation of both parties is 30% or 35% agree with how it's being done.
Yeah,
and that's
which is
only
a nonsense
because of
statement anyway.
the Pretty and Good situation, and it's like, well, if you're trying to do anything even lawfully, and there's people out there trying to interfere, coming at you with guns. Like the people like, you guys are such hypocrites, like Rittenhouse. You remember the Rittenhouse situation? It's like, what's the prime difference you can think of, Chris, between the Rittenhouse situation and the Pretty?
A felon, a chimo, and a wife abuser. Or woman
Was he
abuser.
being chased down by cops?
No, he was being chased down by a pedo, a wife beater.
Oh, that changes things.
And a multi-time felon. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Like if Rittenhouse had gotten into a shootout with the cops, you wouldn't hear a fucking peep out of Republicans.
I seem to recall, and I could be wrong here, but I seem to recall when the cops showed up, he was like this.
Yeah.
That seems to be the key. That is the signal that, hey, I'm white. Don't shoot. I'm white. That seems to work. I don't know why nobody else tries it, but...
You know what it reminds me of? It's like people that drink and drive, right? They get like these people that go to these protests and they get in the cop's face and they create a situation that just ratchets up the tension and the stakes, and there's guns involved. It reminds me of drunk drivers. Like, just because they didn't get shot that time, it's like you're putting yourself in a situation where something bad, really bad could happen, It's like, is it better to not drive drunk? Or is it better to not go to a protest with a gun? Or is it better to not get up in the cop's face? It's like,
well, go to a protest with a gun all you want. Don't fight with cops. Well, you have a gun on you.
And this is something everybody knows. I've talked to a lot of friends of mine that are very pro 2A, and we all agreed that if you are carrying a gun, especially if you're carrying concealed, you de-escalate every situation. You avoid
have a
any
responsibility.
situation. You avoid any situation that's going to put you in conflict. Because that is there as a last resort.
Oh, so you
if
mean
you're
you
toting a
don't
gun,
go screaming at cops and spitting on them and kicking their taillights out? You wouldn't do that.
Right. Yeah,
Really?
if you're toting a gun,
you protest weird, bro.
You need to be the adult, right? Because you're doing that as a last resort if something pops off. That's why you're carrying that thing, and that you're immediately you take on way more responsibility. You got to think
That's
about
the whole thing on the left, though, is taking away personal responsibility from everything. I was talking about that with these leftist or not these leftists, but these complaints from these immigrant detention centers. Like the very idea that you have snuck into this country, to profit. You've gotten away. We've had to come find you. You got arrested. You're awaiting deportation. You're getting free medical care. And you're going to complain that you're not seeing a specialist. Like, the level of astounding privilege that it takes to file that complaint it's hard to fathom.
It's almost stupid, Chris. It's almost stupid.
Almost. Going to the point you were making before, I don't want to play this video because of what it says out loud. It will definitely get us kicked off of YouTube and Twitch. But you can read it right here.
I can't read it. It's too tiny.
Well, okay, I'll read it.
Zoom it. Oh, I'll read it. All right. Just in.
Don't say the word.
White leftist is calling black ICE agents the N-word in Minneapolis and even threatened his life. You're next, N-word, but he didn't say N-word. Once again, proving Democrats are the actual racists. Freaking disgusting people.
Just the other day,
Nick Sorter talks.
Just the other day, a leftist called over and over called a black ICE agent a house N-word. Like, like you said,
yeah, these people are. It's the same principle as the male feminist, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same principle. They when they get around a conservative woman or a Christian woman, all of that misogyny comes out. They just unleash everything they've been storing while they're at the parade and, you know, why they were kissing up to this or that person, you know, when they were wearing their pin, you know, the pin of shame, whatever it happens to be that month. It just gets unleashed on a conservative woman. You know, you're dumb. You know, you're a salute. All the things, right? A canute, you know.
I guess so.
Well, just pay attention. Look how they talk to conservative women, and these people that are over there talking about the, white people, whiteness, racist, blah 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 blah, just endlessly on that. Look how they treat a black person that doesn't agree with them. N-word, right out, first thing, right up the top.
Federal prosecutors have charged more than 150 anti-ICE protesters in Minnesota with federal crimes ranging from obstruction to FACE Act violations, offenses that carry penalties from fines to years in prison, as the Justice Department warns that similar conduct will be prosecuted aggressively nationwide. The response in the state offers a roadmap of sorts on how the Justice Department could move to quash similar protests nationwide, call them riots like they are, please, and respond to unrest during Trump's second presidential term. In Minnesota, more than 150 protesters have been arrested since the start of the immigration enforcement operation, Operation Metro Surge, including protesters who interrupted a church service and others who blocked, assaulted, or attempted to otherwise restrict ICE officers.
Doesn't that number seem really low?
It's a lot less than it should be, sure.
All the things we've seen, it's only 150. Okay, go on. Carry on.
Bonnie last week announced arrest of 16 Minnesota protesters for allegedly assaulting federal law enforcement people. People who have been resisting and impeding our federal agents, according to the criminal complaint. Anyway, they warn more is to come.
Who warns more is to come?
Bondi. So take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But
yeah, I don't know what to make of her. Like, she just says so many stupid things to the point where you think, man, is she working for the other team here? You know, like I don't even know. Is she,
I truly believe she
is stupid, or is she like a double agent?
No, I think she's just playing stupid and just trying to, where she's saying all the right things to put off as long as possible anybody recognizing she's not actually doing anything. How much you want to bet that of those 150 prosecutions, the vast majority get off on nothing? because she botches the
I'm
cases.
really interested to see what happens to the people that went into that church. Like, that's something I'm very much paying attention to. Because if they set the precedent where you get a slap on the wrist and you go and interrupt the church service, and you saw the reaction you got from Christian America, who were very freaking upset about that. And then you can just go in there and get a slap on the wrist for interrupting any church service you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was we just read the other day on the show, maybe a couple weeks ago now, the 150 churches, or was it 1,000? I can't remember if it was 150 or 1,500 churches burned to the ground in Canada, and arson that happened in churches.
Oh yeah,
in
so
Canada.
that came from the story I was doing on the things up in Canada,
and then
yeah,
freaking
there's a lot more than
Trudeau
150.
gets out. In addressing this, Trudeau comes out and he says, we don't condone any type of act of violence, wink, 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 nudge, nudge, But I can certainly understand their anger. Imagine he's talking about burning down Hindu temples or, God forbid, a mosque, right? And he says, well, they have done a lot over the years. I can certainly understand their anger.
Yeah, absolutely insane. But Canada's an insane place. We heard out of those stories too. We had heard that there was all these native children that were buried under these reform schools that the kids were sent to back in the day. Turns out not a single body has ever been recovered. None of that was true.
Yeah, did you ever see, just on a side note, since we're looking at the goon, do you ever see those rounds? They're called RIP rounds, RIP, and they're insanely particleized, right? And so they got the base. They usually do it in a 9mm, and it's meant to like balloon out.
Are you talking about
RIP
frangible rounds?
RIP. Huh?
Oh, you're talking. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about these. Are you really not going to let me open the picture? Okay, fine. These things. You're muted again, guy.
I think it's when one of my alarms goes off, it mutes me. But they're meant to end somebody without question.
They're a gimmick, though. They're not.
No, I'm shoot into like ballistic gel, and
I know the problem is though that it doesn't translate when you start adding bone and stuff.
Clothes.
The key to an effective bullet is mushrooming, which is the theory behind these. But it's how fat of a hole you can get and how much weight you can retain. And the problem with these is all those petals come off and there's no weight to any of them. And so they don't end up penetrating very deep at all, especially if they hit something hard.
Right, but all it does is cause damage, right? It doesn't end the person, right? It causes a ton of damage to the person, like just rips up their skin and causes like...
It theoretically could, sure.
What, you think that they just brush it off when they get shot? Like, oh, man.
No, I mean,
got the dust.
I'm not denying it's going to hurt like hell, but but the actual performance has been reported to be quite lackluster.
Yeah, I mean, but my point is, it's literally
now
just around meant to shred you.
These, on the other hand, look interesting.
Oh, was it a 12 gauge?
It's, same thing, but a 12 gauge slug. But because there's a big, heavy slug behind it, you might actually have something here. And these petals are obviously a lot heavier than they are in a 9
Hey,
mil
I've
or
watched
something.
Kentucky ballistics. I've seen the guys shoot, rock rounds and antler rounds, and they seem like they do enough damage. Anything coming at you that fast, like it's going to cause some damage.
There's a picture of the ballistic gelatin.
Yeah, and it goes in about 9 inches. It looks like. Yeah, but
Yeah,
like
the,
that, it
the
just
center does.
causes.
The problem is this right here. So in ballistic shell, if you're getting 3 or 4 inches like this, you're talking about a few millimeters in the skin usually.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is you can't predict what a bullet's going to do ever. So.
Well, that's why 22. I think 22 is still the deadliest round because it bounces around in there. It hits a bone and then goes shooting up through the heart.
Deadliest in what sense? It's responsible for
I
a
think
lot
it
of
causes
kills,
for the
but
money.
that's because
It could have something to do with like the commonality of the round, right? But yeah, a lot of people die from those. Just getting shot with the 22.
You can see, so these are HSTs right here. This is what I carry, actually. But you can see the goal here, wide opening, but you can see all of the metal is retained in the bullet. And that allows you to keep the full weight, but as big expansion as possible.
Yeah.
It's what most law enforcement carries, too.
45-70. Now that's what you need.
A 45-70?
450 grain bullet? Yeah.
Yeah.
Going 2,000 feet per second.
There's also liquid. There's also these Novex. That's what they're called, Novex rounds. And they claim, incredible performance. The problem is this concept of a very light bullet that's going very fast. It's never really panned out. The idea is you get great penetration in ballistic shell, and you do, with a big wound cavity because it's spinning so fast, but it won't over penetrate and go through walls and stuff because they're so light. They're terrible at penetrating hard targets. But the problem is it just never ends up panning out as far as in actual practice for whatever reason.
Yeah, you have good stopping power with like a hollow point when you get up to I don't know, dude. Like I like a 45 just for stopping power, A hollow point 45, boom, you get hit with that, and you're charging at somebody.
It's a big ass hole, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're going to know you've been shot. And like people are like, yeah, but 45 was inaccurate, beyond like 25 feet. I'm like, dude, most gunfights happen in 25 feet. You're not going to be sitting there sniping each other from.
Well, yeah, no pistol rounds all
yards.
that accurate past 25 feet. You're pretty much any pistol round, to a 100 yards. 100 yards is about the max you can get. Sufficient enough accuracy to hit your target if you're talking about a long enough platform or a big enough platform, but within 50 yards, just about all of them perform close enough to the same,
Yeah, but that's pretty much the limit of any engagement you're going to get into.
Yeah,
in a gunfight. In fact, a lot of them happen a lot closer. I think it's like 13 feet. Most gunfights actually take place.
I don't know what kind of. It says Hornady. This is a very lackluster performance right here. Some sort of
Hornady, yeah, dude, they're cheap rounds. Man, I'll just leave it at that. Good for target practice, though.
Yep.
Yo, buddy. Yeah.
All right, man. Now that the sun's going to be up here in a minute, I need to go to bed. Or at least try and get a little sleep.
Hey, I didn't ask you, dude.
Before I deteriorate.
We're going to keep going for 2. No, I actually have to get going myself. The reason I'm up this early.
Well, that said, first, I'll see you tonight for the live show Friday night. And you want to tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at First ALLAN 2, the American Sincerist.
Oh, man, did I screw that up? I had
You did
Carter.
something.
I gotta check now. I had Carter help me with the remake the audio because I told you it was terrible the other day. I just did it real quick to make it,
hmm
and now I'm wondering if he said, oh, you know what? I wrote it down. Let's see. No, I wrote sincerest, so it should be okay. We'll see.
All right.
All right. At first down
All
on
right,
2
man.
on X. I'll see you tonight, man. Have a good day.
All right. God bless, brother.
And let me get this back into where it's supposed to be. Something like so. And so. There we go. All right, guys. I appreciate you hanging out tonight or morning, if it's morning for you on the East Coast there, like it was for my co-host, Alan. We will finish the story that I started today. I didn't know Alan was even going to be up at this hour, let alone drop in. He scared the hell out of me because I wasn't expecting anybody to drop in. But we'll finish the story maybe tomorrow before the main show, just because there's not too much left, maybe 30 more minutes or so. But so if you want to see the rest of that, it should be, I'll probably get it done tomorrow before the main show. If not, I'll have it up by Saturday. You can find the show x.com/JBU_show. Please go like, follow, share it, do all that good stuff, as well as on Rumble, JBU.Show on Rumble. Those are the only two places that don't constantly flag and censor and take us down, strike us, all of that stuff. So please like, follow the show there, share it if you can. We very much appreciate it. With that, my name is Chris, and this has been the JBU Show. Look at that. Things working correctly. It's amazing.
Bye.